Liu Buyan's heart grieved severely as he could no longer face Mu Chengying. Just from seeing him, he couldn't wait to strangle this former pal to death. Liu Buyan left the words of severing their relationship and turned around to leave. Mu Chengying sat in the room alone for a long, long time. He actually had not sensed when Liu Buyan actually left. Even when his 4 guardians came over to persuade him, he totally had no response. In his heart, there was only one thought, which was, if he had another chance, he would stay by his Leah's side every single moment, not letting her to go take any risks alone. If there was another chance. Suddenly he seemed to have thought of something as he violently shook his head and stood up immediately. The 4 guardians standing guard at the door heard a noise and stood up one by one to check things out. Sect Master, are you better? Do you want? However, Mu Chengying seemed as though he had not heard anything as he directly walked past them, heading straight towards Blue Profound Sect Scripture Depository. This place was the largest depository where all the scriptures are kept, as it had the most amount of ancient records. Mu Chengying stayed in there for an entire 7 days and 7 nights without sleeping. I definitely remember. I obviously remember seeing it before around here. He tried his best to search through all the books as his heart was in a flurry. Anyone who saw him would definitely feel that he had already gone nuts. When Mu Chengying finally reappeared, even his guardians had a great shock. Sect Master, Mu Chengying's look was no different from a dead person, only with his eyes gleaming with a raging glow. Everyone, do as I tell you to. 2 months later, Liu Buyan charged into Blue Profound Sect once again, and this time, he was even more exasperated than before. He simply could not believe such a thing. Mu Chengying, had he gone nuts? He could even do this sort of thing. However, even before he reached the top, he was already blocked in the middle of the path by Mu Chengying's guardians. Master Liu, please halt. Sect Master is now in closed-door cultivation and has instructed this subordinate to not allow anyone to head up to interrupt him. Especially Liu Buyan. The guardian spoke without any expression. Liu Buyan did not hesitate as he struck out a move towards his chess. Make way. Don't tell me you don't know what your sect master is trying to do. Mu Chengying has gone crazy. Are you guys going crazy as well? How can he believe this sort of thing? Do you know what kind of price he has to pay? Get lost. Saying that, he shouted towards the mountain door, Mu Chengying, come out right now. Guardian's ability was far from Liu Buyan's, and after taking a palm strike from him, he immediately threw up a mouthful of blood. But he still abided by his duties as he blocked the middle of the road, not retreating a single step at all. Master Liu, please don't make things difficult for me. Sect Master he has already instructed. Instruct Maya *se. The usually graceful man of the troubled times finally couldn't help but spew vulgarities. Don't tell me that you can open your eyes wide to see him do such things. That is much more painful than death. No way. Move aside, don't force me to kill someone. But, what? You don't want to save him? If you do, then scram to one side. The guardian's hand clenched into a fist as he struggled for a very long time before finally nudging a step to one side. His life was saved by Mu Chengying, and this was the first time in his life to defy Mu Chengying's command. You can also listen on. But he couldn't not do that, because he really didn't want to see Sect Master Mu, whom everyone worshipped, falling to that kind of ending. Moreover now, Miss Huang was no longer around, so if there was anyone who could persuade him, it would be Liu Buyan. Liu Buyan took quick steps and rushed into Mu Chengying's mountain valley, which he went into closed-door cultivation in. At this present moment, it was already midnight and the sky was filled with stars, with the moon especially bright, illuminating every corner of the entire valley. When Liu Buyan charged into the valley, he saw Mu Chengying sitting cross-legged on an empty space under the moonlight. From the looks of it, he seemed to be cultivating. Liu Buyan saw this and was extremely surprised. He thought that he would see. You, what are you doing? Mu Chengying suddenly opened his eyes as a cold smile hung by the corners of his lips. Master Liu, what a rare visitor. If I don't remember wrongly, you seem to have said this yourself, that you will never step into Blue Profound Sect anymore, and you no longer wanted to see me. Such a short span of time, and you're already regretting it. When Liu Buyan heard that, he recovered from his shock. You, stop acting. I've already heard that you're getting your man to collect that thing. And you've already collected everything. I know what you're trying to do. Mu Chengying smiled faintly. What do I want to do? What do you know? I'm collecting that thing because Leah loved it before and I'm using it to remember her. Why? Can't I do that? What does it have to do with you? He made it sound so easy that for an instant, Liu Buyan almost assumed that he had really made a misjudgment, that Mu Chengying really didn't have that intention. But very soon, Liu Buyan saw the evident greenish-black color under his eyes, which was caused by the repeated depletion of profound energy. Do you think I'm an idiot? That ancient record was discovered by the both of us that year. I know what you're thinking of doing. You're nuts, you're really nuts. That is merely a subjective idea left behind by the predecessors, and even the senior who wrote that ancient record had never done such a thing. That would definitely not succeed. How do you know it's not possible? Mu Chengying's idea was exposed by him, so he totally couldn't be bothered to continue acting. As long as there's a hint of hope, I will give it a shot. Liu Buyan shook his head in disbelief. Do you know what you're saying? Life and death are ruled by fate. The dead cannot be revived. Moreover, Yueli's soul had been scattered. It's not an ordinary death. My pain isn't any lesser than yours, but we must learn to accept the truth. Some things, since it has already happened, there would be no way to reverse it forever. Truth? What truth? How am I supposed to accept it? I totally cannot accept it. Mu Chengying suddenly shouted out as he broke down, rebutting Liu Buyan's words. All the pretense of being calm and steady suddenly turned into naught. Liu Buyan gritted his teeth as he glowered at him angrily. Cannot accept it. Now then you say you cannot accept it. What were you doing before that? Do you think that by doing this, it would lessen your guilt? Did you think that by doing this, Yueli would feel happy in her grave? You can't regain anything at all. All you want is to reduce your own guilt. Mu Chengying's thoughts seemed as though the nail had hit on the head as he started to shake violently. But after a while, he forced himself to calm down. Up to you on whatever you want to say. No one can stop me on the things I want to do. Haven't we already severed our friendship? Why have you still not scrammed away? You can also listen on. Liu Buyan was so infuriated that his face turned green. Right, I'm acting low, coming to stop you even after our friendship has been severed. But I came not because of you. I just don't want Yueli to see a trash like you tangling onto her even when she's down there. If you're in a hurry to go die, no one will stop you. Mu Chengying's gaze swept towards him as his voice was incomparably cold. Liu Buyan, do you know why you can't win me? This sentence was cold and calm, but it seemed like lightning striking onto Liu Buyan. He thought he had concealed it very well, but he didn't expect that this little thought of his had been completely seen through by Mu Chengying. Just as Liu Buyan was so shocked until he couldn't move, Mu Chengying's words continued to ring in his ears. This is because you're a rational man, whereas I am a lunatic. You will keep thinking that because you don't have enough power, so you will only start wooing her after you have made a name for yourself. You will give her up to me because you cannot protect her. You will also not do anything meaningless just because she's dead, only silently mourning for her. But I am different. I only know that I want her. I want her to be mine, whether she's up in the skies or deep down in the earth. I will follow her in life and death. She can forget about casting me aside. Perhaps you're right, all I am doing might be useless, but even if I can't do anything, at least I could try to follow her in having my soul scattered, to have a feel of what kind of feeling it is. Mu Chengying was saying that and he actually smiled. However, that extraordinary good-looking face now seemed especially sinister. Accompanied with that smile, it made one feel terrified. Mu Chengying, you've really gone nuts. I am nuts. From the first day I met her, I have already gone nuts. Mu Chengying rose up his head suddenly and laughed wildly. Let me be a complete lunatic this time. I've already said whatever I should, so you can leave now. After his words, he waved his sleeve ferociously and an incomparably powerful profound energy came sweeping towards Liu Buyan. Liu Buyan's power originally wasn't very strong, and as he was caught off guard, he totally had no form of resistance as he was directly sent flying out. He flew for a dozen or more feet before he fell onto the ground. But he wasn't hurt in any way as he turned around and rushed into the valley once again. However, this time round, the valley was enveloped by a huge array. Many colored array patterns kept on lighting up from the exterior of the array, blocking his view, thus he was unable to see the situation inside at all. Liu Buyan wanted to charge in, but the minute he got near, he was expelled by the array. Mu Chengying, Mu Chengying. He called out anxiously, but there was no response at all. A burst of 7 colored flowing lights charged up into the sky. Li Moying's head became more and more painful as numerous memories instantly surged into his brain. These memories were too complex, as though it was going to split his head apart. It caused him to be dizzy as his brain hurt so much as though it was about to explode. At the same time, his body sensed the brilliance of the full moon, and the profound energy in his body grew more and more abundant, as though it was going to flow out from his body. His entire body was in unbearable pain, and he finally couldn't help but gave a moan. Tenji. Not only that, while he was unconscious, initially he turned around and struggled repeatedly as though he wasn't able to bear the pain from the inside of his body. Li Moying's groan became louder and louder. Spiritual beast Qilin, which laid on the center position of the stone tablet, sensed something as it slowly opened its eyes. You can also listen on. At the beginning, Qilin was still a little dazed, apparently not understanding why the Qilin tablet had already returned back underground and it would still suddenly be awoken. But immediately following that, the intermittent moans from the corner made it suddenly awoken. Qilin's pair of bronze bell eyes opened as it swept towards the corner, and only one look and it was completely shocked. Although it was absolute darkness, but spiritual beast's vision far surpassed humans, hence it could clearly see the figure was kept on twitching on the ground. What's going on? Hadn't this little fellow already died completely? How did he suddenly start to move again? Qilin raised its front paw and rubbed its eyes, thinking that it had developed a hallucination. However, the truth was placed right in front of it. The dead corpse in the corner actually rose from the dead. This isn't possible, eh? Earlier I obviously witnessed it with my own eyes that his profound energy was totally exhausted, and under this kind of situation, he would breathe his last within 2 hours. How is it possible that he actually came back to life? Something's wrong, this is not right. Qilin muttered to itself as it stood up from the ground and walked towards the corner. The minute it got nearer, it could see even clearly. Li Moying kept rolling around as he cramped up, apparently suffering a huge amount of pain. Qilin had even sensed that there was an extremely powerful energy in his body, which would explode out at any point of time. Li Moying's condition was extremely bad, but no matter how bad it was, he was still alive. Moreover, from the way that his eyelids trembled, it seemed as though it wouldn't take long for him to open his eyes to regain consciousness. What should I do? He actually came back to live in such a manner. This time round, Qilin was really dazed. It had never committed such a serious mistake, to cut off the refinement while the person in the Qilin tablet was still alive, and even bringing that live person underground. This was a complete violation to the Qilin tablet's operating procedure. Moreover, since Li Moying wasn't dead, this refinement shouldn't have ended. Could it be that he should go up ahead to deal with Li Moying a fatal blow before he regained consciousness completely? To tell the truth, spiritual beast Qilin could not bear to do so. It was experienced and knowledgeable, so how would it not know that a peerless expert like Li Moying was extremely rare in the entire God realm, enough to become Cloudy Qilin clan's future leader? Earlier, even after experiencing that fatal refinement, he was lucky enough to have survived. That meant that he had soaring luck and was genuinely unmatched in his generation. If it had to kill him, it would defy heaven's will, and perhaps it might even affect the entire Cloudy Qilin clan's luck. While spiritual beast Qilin was hesitating, it suddenly sensed roars of thunder coming from the sky, as a powerful suppression surfaced on its heart. It immediately realized that this was the beginning of the operating procedure of the Qilin tablet. If any live person entered the Qilin tablet, then it must attack that person until that person gave up, or if any one of them were killed. This was the natural regulation which spiritual beast Qilin, which had been sealed as the spirit artifact, could not defy. Under the drive of this kind of oppression, the color of Qilin's eyes turned darker and darker as the rationality in its mind started to turn weaker and its beast nature was completely unleashed. Rare. Spiritual beast Qilin raised its neck upwards and gave a raging howl, totally unable to control itself as it pounced towards Li Moying's body. You can also listen on. Spiritual beast Qilin's body moved and it brought along the hibernated thunder-attributed energy within the Qilin tablet. The entire stone tablet space was charged with the electric current power as it gave off a serene yet terrifying blue-purplish glow. This glow reflected onto Li Moying's face, making his terribly pale complexion look no different from a dead man. Electric currents speedily gathered into spiritual beast Qilin's body, and not too long later, it made Qilin's aura rise to the maximum. Following that, spiritual beast Qilin's claw waved outwards and a raging lightning kept on flickering under its claw, as though one would be torn into two halves if one was touched by it. However, just at the instance when Qilin touched Li Moying, the originally unconscious man suddenly opened his eyes. Qilin was now helpless, but upon seeing Li Moying opening his eyes, it suddenly had a regretful thought in its mind. No matter what, such an excellent practitioner dying here was really a huge pity. But at this moment, it suddenly realized that something was wrong with Li Moying. His gaze was exceptionally cold and emotionless, so penetrative as though it could shoot through one's soul. From just one look, Qilin sensed a chill running down its spine. At the same time, Li Moying's agitated profound energy instantly exploded. Boom! Heaven-shattering explosion rang and the entire Qilin tablet started to shake uncontrollably as the limestones from the wall kept on falling off. A blinding lightning suddenly lit up, with an aura which pressed forward, the might of the thunder attribute energy coercing one's heart to tremble, as it came blasting towards spiritual beast Qilin's direction. This lightning contained energy which was incomparably pure. Even a matured spiritual beast like Qilin was in or till it couldn't move a limb. Qilin was only able to see that burst of silver thread like lightning flash past, and immediately following that, it sensed extreme pain which ran through its entire body. I am going to die. Its mind only had this thought, and following that, it completely lost its consciousness. In the Qilin tablet, Li Moying had already unknowingly stood up. If Huang Yueli was around, she would be able to tell that even though his phase was sharp and horrifying, but he had no spirit. Evidently, his soul detachment illness had acted up once again. Li Moying's conscience was blurry and the large amount of images in his brain made him blurred out his past and present lives. He wasn't sure where he was, only knowing that he must kill all those who stood in his way, clearing all obstacles. He must return to his beloved woman's side. Anyone who dared to obstruct him would only have a death ending. Li Moying clenched the amethyst light sword tightly, and with a wave of his sword, the surging profound energy within his body was unleashed along with the sword blade. That sword ray directly shattered the Qilin's spiritual body. Just one move and the original spiritual beast, which left him soaked in blood earlier, was eliminated with just one move. However, the sword ray's energy had not diminished. That dazzling ray had not even weakened as it directly crashed onto the top part of the Qilin tablet. Qilin tablet had suffered this kind of attack and started to shake violently, as though it would be shattered from the profound energy unleashed from here. Li Moying raised up his amethyst light sword emotionlessly as he prepared to make a move. But right at this moment, small blue-purplish light balls started to gather from the Qilin's spiritual body, which had been shattered by him as it directly injected into his meridians. You can also listen on. Li Moying's movements paused as he clearly sensed those thunder-attributed profound energy entering his body, instantly raising the profound energy in his body to another new height. The current him was originally in 9th stage realm peak condition. After spiritual beast Qilin's profound energy entered his body, the profound energy within his body grew so abundant as though it was about to expand and split him up. Especially the profound energy in his dantian, it kept on charging against his body's limit as though the very next moment, he would advance once again. Li Moying uncontrollably raised up the long sword in his hand as he struck again. His current condition was incomparably near to 10th stage realm, and the might of this sword was so powerful that it was totally unimaginable. For an instant, thunder-attributed energy exploded. Sword glint directly split through the top part of the Qilin tablet, shooting into the sky. This time, even the ground started to shake violently, like an earthquake. The ground in the core region shattered completely as bursts after bursts of ground-splitting cracks appeared and the energy's aftermath scattered out towards its surrounding. By the time the vibration stopped, the top part of the Chilean tablet had already been penetrated through by Li Moying's sword chi, revealing a huge large broken hold. The full moon's beam penetrated the broken hold and shot into the inside of the stone tablet, landing onto Li Moying's body. Under the irradiation of the moonlight, the turbulent profound energy in his body finally started to subside a little. However, his pillously handsome face was still shrouded with a dark and gloomy expression as his gaze was so deep that it was unfathomable. His perfectly sculpted peripheral view was like a cold sculpture under the moonlight. Following that, Li Moying leapt upwards and jumped out from the hole on the top part of the stone tablet. Huang Yueli summoned up all the existing profound energy in her body as she faced the lightning which was coming at her. Even though she knew that it was definitely impossible for her to survive under such a strong intensity attack, but she could only brace herself to resist for the last time. The minute the appalling and mighty lightning rained down on the top of her head, the ground suddenly shook. Huang Yueli's feet were unstable as she wasn't able to stand still from the shaking, as she fell onto the ground. On the mountain, a large rock dropped down and luckily and coincidentally blocked the top part of her body. 3 bolts of lightning simultaneously fell onto the huge rock, turning the vast-sized, rock-solid white mist rock turning into powder instantaneously. Huang Yueli sprawled onto the ground as the powder fell all over her body. She looked as though she had just been dug out from the mud, and as compared to much earlier, she was in a much sorrier state by 10 times or more. However, Huang Yueli felt extremely fortunate because she was really too lucky to have survived in such a situation. Alas, her joy only lasted for a short span of one breath. Because her good luck did not allow her to really escape danger. The 3 magical beasts paused for a moment and immediately stretched out their claws, as they struck an attack posture. But it seemed as though Heavens was intentionally on her side. Just as the 3 magical beasts were prepared to make a move again, the ground started shaking again, and furthermore this time round, the sky spun and earth went round while the ground shook and mountains sway. The ground shook violently and cracks appeared below their feet. Large rocks kept on falling down and fell all over the heads of Huang Yueli and the 3 magical beasts. Huang Yueli hurriedly extended her footwork to evade. The 3 magical beasts also hurried to evade the falling rocks, and they weren't concerned about continuing to attack her for the moment. Huang Yueli's heart leapt with joy as she moved towards the direction far away from the magical beasts. But due to the falling rocks, she could not move too quickly. You can also listen on. The ground vibrated vigorously for a quarter of an hour or so before it slowly stopped. Right now, Huang Yueli had barely moved a distance of 500 meters and was still in the attack boundary of those 3 magical beasts. Sending that the ground was no longer shaky, Huang Yueli went into a blank. Damn it, why is it not shaking anymore? Isn't there an earthquake? Quickly continue to shake. She clenched her teeth as she screamed in exasperation. But this time, the ground really stopped shaking. Huang Yueli was so anxious that she nearly threw up blood and lifted up her head. She saw those 3 magical beasts had already calmed down as they cast their gazes onto her once more. Furthermore, this time round, their gazes turned even more malicious and even more savage. Apparently, this kind of prey which they could swallow in one mouth had escaped a number of times right when she was in their claws, and had thoroughly spiked that beast nature. Huang Yueli was screaming inside her heart that things were far from good as she immediately turned and ran. Alas, it was too late. When she heard the bursts of electric currents breaking in the air, she knew that she would definitely not be able to escape death this time round. Huang Yueli shut her eyes as she waited for the lightning to strike her to death. However, the expected pain did not descend on her. Not only that, she even heard peals of miserable shrieks coming from behind her, and following that was the sound of a heavyweight item crashing onto the ground. Huang Yueli's footsteps took a halt, and before she was able to turn her head around, she suddenly felt a powerful aura in the air, even stronger than those 3 magical beasts' aura, much more overbearing by 100 times. But this terrifying profound energy aura gave her an extremely familiar feeling, so familiar that she almost shed tears on the scene. Huang Yueli turned her head around in a daze and she saw a tall and lanky figure standing behind her not too far away. That man stood in the darkness and his eyes were covered by the shadow. But from the contours of his lower jaw, she could tell that he was an extremely good-looking man. When Huang Yueli saw him, her tears started rolling down. Moying. You're not dead, you're really not dead. She leapt upwards as she flew towards Li Moying and pounced into his arms, tipping her toes up as she hugged his neck. Boo-hoo-hoo, you really scared me to death, I thought you were a goner for sure. What exactly happened? Why haven't you appeared for such a long time? Do you know that I'd be worried? You baby, big baby. Huang Yueli rubbed her face against his chest, as she rubbed all her tears and mucus onto him as well. She had not cried for a very long time because she had always believed in her own strength, not believing that tears could change anything, hence she didn't allow herself to be so soft. But at this moment, she completely couldn't control her own emotions, as that strong and unyielding lady disappeared from her body. What was left in her shell was an ordinary young lady. One who was worried and scared over her fiancé's disappearance, who had turned into a frail ordinary young lady. Noticing this point made Huang Yueli feel even more vengeful. She cried for a long time in Li Moying's arms and slowly started to calm down. She stretched out her hand and whisked Li Moying's top to wipe her tears, and at the same time punched him with her little fists with fury. It's all your fault, causing me to be so embarrassing. All your fault for scaring me. She mumbled and suddenly sensed that something was not right. Because Li Moying had been really too quiet. If it was usual times, seeing how sadly she cried, this man would have felt extreme heartache. You can also listen on. He would probably have been hugging her nervously, comforting her, so how could he possibly be that silent? Huang Yueli's heart jolted as she hurriedly raised her head up. The next moment, her eyes met with a night-like dark pair of pupils, and that pair of eyes even had occasional flashes of bluish-purple currents. Under the moonlight, he seemed extremely terrifying, whereas this man's profound energies fluctuations were so powerful beyond anyone's imagination. Electric currents kept on flickering around the duo, giving off a buzzing exploding sound, as though it would explode at any point of time. Huang Yueli's body instantly went stiff as she subconsciously raised her head to look at the sky. When she saw that bright full moon, she immediately understood what had happened. Your soul detachment illness acted up again? She asked carefully. However, apparently, Li Moying would not answer her. That pair of cold and stern eyes was fixated on her without a single word or a single movement. Even though his surrounding profound energy was on the verge of explosion, but Huang Yueli, who hugged him tightly, was still unharmed. Even after such a long time of crying while hugging him, not one part of her was electrocuted at all. Huang Yueli realized this and her lips couldn't help but curled into a smile. Sigh, really, every time you need me to save the hero in distress. Saying that, she tipped her toes up as she raised her head to block Li Moying's lips. Li Moying's subconscious was originally rather blurry. He walked all the way here to kill the magical beasts and saved Huang Yueli because of the murderous intent of his soul detachment illness. These three magical beasts were the nearest living creatures, hence it attracted him over. When Huang Yueli pounced towards him, for one moment, he almost struck out directly. But not knowing why, the electric currents in his hand had already gathered into a light circle, but he wasn't able to lift his arm up no matter what and could only watch helplessly at this dirty young lass pouncing into his arm while crying and rubbing him. As his past and present lives' memories are mixed up in his mind, Li Moying's head was so painful that it was about to split open, so he couldn't remember who this young lass was. Until Huang Yueli kissed his lips. That familiar sensation, familiar presence as it instantly emitted into his body, making his raging profound energy comforted gently by an invisible big arm. His consciousness slowly cleared up. This presence. Yes, that's right. This was that presence which he had crossed over his past and present life, seeking again and again in spite of all the setbacks, forever going crazy over. The presence of his beloved woman. His Leah. Li Moying's surrounding aura slowly restrained itself as the profound energy in his body slowly went back to original. He locked onto Huang Yueli's slender waist and turned from guest to host as he brought her into his arms and wildly but passionately started to kiss her. He seemed to place all the experiences such as terror, worry, self-blame, regret, in his confused memories, melding everything into this scorching, passionate kiss. Li Moying's kiss became stronger and stronger, wilder and wilder, as though he was going to swallow her into his stomach. Hong Yueli felt Li Moying kissing her back. Initially she was rather happy over it because it meant that Li Moying's soul detachment illness was under control and he was about to regain back to his normal self. But after a while, she felt that something was amiss. Li Moying's kiss was too devoted as he locked onto her tightly and the intensity of his strength almost broke her waist. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli subconsciously started to struggle, trying to push this man aside. But Li Moying's strength was just too strong and the arm around her waist was like metal. No matter how hard she pushed, she was unable to struggle free. Not only that, as she continued to struggle, Li Moying became even more impatient and his actions started to become even more intensive. He suddenly raised his head up and left Huang Yueli's lips. Huang Yueli hurriedly took the opportunity to take in deep breaths, feeling that she was about to suffocate. However, right before she had finished panting, Li Moying pinched her lower jaw, forcing her to raise up her head and started to kiss her once again. This time round, Li Moying simply locked her lower jaw, leaving her unable to move totally, hence she could only obediently take in his close to venting wild kiss. Originally Huang Yueli still struggled a little, but subsequently, she was conquered by that raging sensation as she subconsciously threw herself into his arms befuddled. By the time Li Moying finally released her, Huang Yueli's lips had already turned swollen and her skin was broken as the corners of her lips had some bloodstains left behind. Huang Yueli blinked her eyes in a daze, realizing that she had regained her freedom. She jumped right up and used both hands to cover her swollen lips as she berated him in exasperation. Li Moying, you lunatic. Which artery had been connected wrong? Do you need to act like this? You are really too much. Whoever knew that after Li Moying half that, not only did he not repented, he even started laughing as his eyes shot past a sliver of reminiscence. Bingo, what you said is right. I am a lunatic, past and present live, only crazy for you. Really, he was extremely grateful to heavens for allowing him to complete something which no one had successfully done before, allowing this young lady to be reborn right in front of him. Huang Yueli was extremely upset because this man was just too sickening, and he didn't know how to repent. She raised up her large watery eyes as she gave him a furious stare. You don't think that you've escaped death, then you can act like this. You must apologize. Li Moying didn't make a sound. Huang Yueli became angrier as she couldn't help but gave him a push. Why aren't you saying a word? Whoever knew that her hand had just brushed onto Li Moying's body and that man just followed according to her strength and fell backwards. Huang Yueli had a huge fright, because she totally hadn't used much strength. Not to mention what kind of peerless strong practitioner Li Moying was, even an ordinary child who didn't cultivate would not fall in such a manner. She went into a blank and finally reacted and stretched out her arm to catch him. Li Moying fell into her arms and the energy from his body seemed to have been sapped dry. He totally had no strength and the color in his face drained away cleanly within a couple of breaths. Li Moying, wake up, what the matter? Huang Yueli shook him but could only hear him coughing slightly as a sliver of blood dripped down from the corner of his lips. Huang Yueli didn't dare to move casually as she laid him flat on the ground. She retrieved various kinds of medication from her space and shoved it in handfuls into his mouth. At the same time, she tore open his shirt as she started to clean and bandage his wounds. Upon seeing Li Moying's body filled with various injuries, there were even a few which were obviously fatal injuries, Huang Yueli's heart started to tug him tightly. Luckily you came back alive. I knew that you wouldn't leave me alone. You can also listen on. Li Moying was originally seriously injured in the Chilean tablet and later on when his soul detachment illness acted up, it hurt his state of mind, hence he was unconscious for a longer time this time round. This wasn't the first time Huang Yueli experienced this, hence she wasn't as nervous as previous times. After ascertaining that his pulse, breathing, and profound energy fluctuations were normal, she rested her heart and moved him into the small little cave which they had once stayed for a little while to recuperate. Luckily after Li Moying appeared, Little Cheline also revived immediately as it leapt and frisked about, unleashing its might to awe those 6th and 7th leveled magical beasts around the boundary of the valley. Hence, during the period of time when Li Moying was recuperating, they hadn't met with any danger as everything went along smoothly. 7 days later, very late into the night, Huang Yueli was sleeping soundly. Although they were only temporarily residing here to recuperate, she had always emphasized heavily on the quality of living, so she redecorated the cave, placing thick bedding on the ground, and also set up an array in the cave which became a warm and comfortable place to live in. Little Cheline laid in her little den by her feet, but to show the disdain towards the sacred phoenix's little chick, it used its little bottom to face it. She was in a daze when she seemed to have heard a strange sound. Huang Yueli opened her eyes and looked towards Li Moying's direction and immediately sobered up, then climbed up. Li Moying, who was lying not too far away, suddenly kept flipping around and even gave deep groans with an extremely uncomfortable look. Huang Yueli walked over as she bent down and looked at him worriedly. "Moying, what's the matter? Which part of you feels uncomfortable?" Li Moying's eyes opened up into a slit as his lips opened up slightly. Huang Yueli saw him regaining consciousness and gave out a joyful look as she leaned in close to him. She only heard Li Moying's weak breathing as he said, You hide further away a little. I think I am about to advance." Huang Yueli's eyes widened. "What did you say?" Before Li Moying opened his mouth again, an earth-shattering thunderous sound was heard from the sky. Following this bolt of deafening thunder, the entire cave kept on shaking as bolts after bolts of lightning descended from the sky, penetrating the mountain walls as it flowed into Li Moying's body. Strong thunder attributed profound qi filled the entire cave as sounds of pitter-pattering electric currents were heard coming from the sky. Huang Yueli basically couldn't withstand this strong aura as her chest felt a turbulence of her qi and blood, hence she hastily retreated backwards. She retreated several thousand miles away before she finally felt slightly better. At least she didn't feel like throwing up blood. Originally she wanted to bring little Cheline along, but whoever knew that when this little thing sensed electric energy, it wriggled out from her arms immediately as it flew towards the center of the lightning, casting this female mistress of it aside. Huang Yueli could only sit down alone at a hill far away, looking afar at the position of the previous cave. Precisely speaking, that location was no longer a cave. Within a short span of a quarter of an hour, that entire mountain had already been flattened to ground level by the continuously descending heavenly thunder. It even struck the falling stones from the mountain into charred grayed dust. Li Moying's body was lifted to the middle of the sky by the electric current's might, and on his back was a pair of thunder wings which seemed even more distinct than when she first saw it. When he was in the 7th stage realm, that pair of wings was not totally visible and was only in the form of an energy body, but now, it was clearly seen in fine details with substantial essence, seemingly no difference from a real pair of wings. You can also listen on. Li Moying was surrounded by dazzling brilliant purple electric currents. Bolts of lightning surrounded him to form a large zone filled with flickering thunder bolts. In this piece of thunder-attributed energy-formed zone, every single inch of energy was under Li Moying's control. Anyone who wanted to get close to him would be turned into ashes with just a single thought. This thunder zone almost enveloped the entire valley as the abundant profound qi gushed through the clouds, all the way till it enveloped the top part of Violet Sun Valley's thick fog, illuminating the entire sky as though it was daytime. When Huang Yueli saw this from far away, her little mouth formed an O shape, totally unable to close up. What on earth? He is going to advance into the 9th stage realm already? He had plainly just advanced into the 8th stage realm a few days ago. Both of us are God-grade geniuses, but why is he advancing much faster than me? What on earth happened? With her eyes, she could naturally see that the profound energy fluctuations had already reached the limit of the 9th stage realm, and the entire valley's thunder-attributed profound qi were all gathered on him, which was barely enough to supply him the energy for advancement. Not only that, his body also began to undergo changes. Under the invasion of the electricity, his skin started to break into tiny pieces as it started to grow out inch by inch. His entire body kept on sprouting blood, and that original pillously handsome face looked even more sinister than a demon. Huang Yueli had once experienced the process of advancing into the ninth stage realm, so she knew clearly that failing to succeed and the changes of shedding one's mortal body to exchange one's bones were the signs of advancement. Because for those practitioners under the eighth stage realm, even though their abilities far surpassed ordinary people, they were still human. But once they advanced into ninth stage realm, their substance had actually entered half-god realm territory, so no matter if it was in terms of profound energies flow or the strength of their meridians or body, it was a huge difference from 8th stage realm. Because of them, when one was below 8th stage realm, challenging someone beyond the big realms wasn't too difficult, but 9th stage realm practitioners, no matter how weak their combat power was, there wasn't a possibility of being defeated by 8th stage realm practitioner. The only one who could cross realms, challenge against a ninth stage realm practitioner and win was probably only Li Moying alone. But after today, he need not do any cross-realms battle again. Huang Yueli looked from far as she got rather nervous and her hands had already clenched into fists while mumbling silently, how could there be such a huge formation? Even when Mu Chengying advanced then, the surrounding thunder zone wasn't that strong. Today there aren't any ninth stage realm and above practitioners' guardians around. Moying, you've got to be careful. To a practitioner, the stronger one's innate talent was, the more powerful the strange phenomenon would be attracted to, and the stronger the ability after advancement would be. And at this present moment, Li Moying had already gathered all the thunder-attributed energy from the entire Violet Sun Valley onto him. With a raise of his arm, he would be able to cut across mountains and rip apart heaven and earth. But his body still seemed like a black hole, continuing to absorb the heaven and earth profound chi. Violet Sun Valley and Cloudy Chelene Mystic Region originally had an array to mutually isolate each other, but under the impact when he gathered the energy during advancement, the array kept on shaking violently. Huang Yueli raised her head to see bursts of light flashing continuously in the sky. Those were the array patterns which were being activated continuously from the exterior of Violet Sun Valley, obstructing Li Moying from absorbing the profound qi from outside the valley. However, this condition only maintained for a short period of time, and not long later, an intense bursting sound was heard coming from the mid-air. You can also listen on. The ancient array outside Violet Sun Valley finally could not withstand the impact from Li Moying's profound energy as it collapsed completely. The energy required to forcibly shatter an array was 10 times the energy required to maintain an array, so it was imaginable just how strong the gathered thunder-attributed energy which Li Moying had gathered was. The array collapsed and caused a huge force of impact as it blew Huang Yueli away in a moment. Huang Yueli's body drew out an arc in mid-air and she was almost going to fall heavily, incurring serious injuries. She hurriedly summoned Little Phoenix, making it speedily grew larger as she sat on its body to leave the thunderous core zone. One lady and one phoenix flew all the way to the boundary of the Cloudy Chelene Mystic Region before they finally stopped. The only advantage was that since Li Moying had already absorbed all the thunder-attributed energy from the valley, those magical beasts which had been reared in Violet Sun Valley and had automatically attacked Little Phoenix had all turned into energy balls, merging into his thunder zone. So Little Phoenix was no longer afraid of appearing. But under several impacts from the energy, Huang Yueli had already turned ashen-faced as she sat on the grass in an extremely disheveled state. Little Phoenix also turned back into a little shota look as he sat by her feet, staring at afar in a daze. Heavens! Big Demon Lord is going to ascend to God Realm? Isn't that a little too fast? You've just gotten engaged and he's going to abandon you. Little Phoenix's chin almost dropped onto the ground. Huang Yueli swept him with a glance. Stop talking rubbish, Moying is merely advancing into the ninth stage realm. It's still too early to ascend. Although she said that, Little Phoenix's words still made her feel a slight crisis. Originally the gap between her cultivation and Li Moying's had shrunk, but whoever knew that after Li Moying entered the Cloudy Chelene Mystic Region, he actually broke through 2 large realms, ditching her aside by a huge chunk again. No way, she got to work hard in order to ascend together than her fiancé. Little Phoenix was still making a big fuss. 9th stage realm, are you kidding me? How is that possible? Thinking of cheating the young me, as though I've never seen a practitioner advancing. When I was with my brother in God Realm, I've also experienced a lot of things, alright? There are so many geniuses in God realm, but none of them had caused such a shocking phenomenon while advancing to the 9th stage realm. If it wasn't for the lockdown of the barrier from the outside of the cloudy Chilean mystic region, I think he would even poke a hole through the sky. Huang Yueli looked at him, raising his voice with that exaggerated tone, making her lips twitch. Enough, stop shouting. It's a crucial moment for Moying to advance, and if you affect him, see if I will beat your butt or not. Wang Cai covered his little but in a conditioned reflex as he guarded against her. If you dare to cast domestic violence against this little lord, I will not allow you to mount on me in future. Huang Yueli was about to speak out when she heard an earth-shattering sound from the sky as thunder and lightning swept across the entire mystic region, almost blinding everyone's eyes. Huang Yueli immediately prowled down as she put out a defensive posture. Save me. Little Wang Cai whooshed and snuck into her arms as his little body kept on trembling, his little face turning pale. Oh my goodness. Female demon's fiancé is really too terrifying. Was he really breaking through to the 9th stage realm? But he was still in the 7th stage realm when he first entered the mystic region, and now it was scary enough that he was breaking through to the 9th stage realm. 10th stage realm of course wasn't possible. But the strange phenomenon was something which he had not seen before in God realm. That's it, Big Demon Lord was so amazing, so it definitely had no way to stick out in future. You can also listen on. Right now, Li Moying himself wasn't feeling very good. The process of failing before succeeding wasn't only on the dermatological surface, but it also penetrated deep into his bones and internal organs. Every inch of his body had been purified by electricity while purging out the impurities in his body, and that pain was indescribable with mere words. But this to him was an experience, and besides, his tolerance level had always been rather high, so the physical pain wasn't a big problem for him at all. What made him really in pain was the splitting pain from his primordial spirit, as though his brain was about to split open. Various complex memories kept on flashing past. As though it could no longer take on the strong suppression from his advancement, which might completely burst anytime, anywhere. This wasn't an illusion, but under the kind of strong intensity thunder attributed energy, it was possible that his soul might be scattered at any point of time. Li Moying was very clear on how this situation came about. It was the price which he had to pay for his heaven-defying action in his past life. In reality, he himself wasn't as optimistic as Huang Yueli, because only he himself knew that his advancement this time round, he might not be able to succeed. Every single time he advanced, the risks he had to take on were much higher than ordinary practitioners. Although it looked as though his cultivation speed was swift, but the higher his cultivation, the more risks he had to undertake. So much that the danger level when his soul detachment illness acted up, was in line with his cultivation. Liu Buyan had once told him that the best way of curbing his soul detachment illness was to never advance forever. But for a genius practitioner like Li Moying, how could he possibly accept himself to be a weakling forever? Especially after he met Huang Yueli, his desire to become even strong grew so that he could protect her forever. Hence, Li Moying cultivated with even more diligence, causing his soul detachment illness to act up even more frequently. Whereas now, the process of advancing into the 9th stage realm was the most crucial and most dangerous checkpoint. Liu Buyan had once warned him that if he could not handle this crucial point prudently, then the result that awaited him was possibly the scattering of his soul. Of course, Li Moying would not possibly give up on charging towards the 9th stage realm just because of a mere warning, but he had thought of making more preparations before he advanced. He had not predicted that his own ability actually rose that quickly, and after absorbing the energy from the magical beasts in Violet Sun Valley, to immediately breaking through to 8th stage realm and later on borrowing the acting up of soul detachment illness to unleash 9th stage realm peak's potential to kill the spiritual beast Chilean, obtaining the profound energy reward from the Chilean tablet. Under the push from various elements, he actually faced the moment of advancing in such a short period of time. Originally, he wanted to try ways to suppress the impulse of advancing, waiting to advance at another suitable time after they left Violet Sun Valley. But right after his body was heavily injured, he could no longer suppress the turbulent profound energy in his body, and as the intensity of thunder-attributed energy was too high in Violet Sun Valley, he instantly sensed the drawing of his engine, wildly surging towards him and flowing into his meridians, forcing him to advance right now. The pain in his state of mind kept on accumulating and adding on to the confusion from his memories. It made Li Moying feel so sick that he wanted to throw up, feeling that he would go crazy at the very next moment. However, just as he was almost about to lose control of himself, there was a moment in time when Huang Yueli's face flashed past his mind. No, he could not admit defeat, he could not fall right here. He had not even married Leah, so how could he fall so easily? You can also listen on. Moreover speaking, the entire cloudy Chelene mystic region's electric current energy had all gathered at this place, so if he fails in advancement, his soul would be scattered and all these electric currents would immediately lose control completely. The person who would bore the brunt and be torn into shred by the rampaging currents would be Huang Yueli, who was the nearest to this place. When Li Moying thought of this, he suddenly became frightened as his senses finally sobered up a little. He forcefully suppressed the dizziness in his head as he gathered all his energy to control the profound energy within him, preparing to break through the bottleneck of the 9th stage realm. Since things had come to such a pass, he no longer had a second choice and could only choose to advance immediately. The faster he completed the advancement, the lesser pain he had to endure and the safer Leah, who was at the boundary of the violent storm, would be. Finally, under his hard work, the electric current's energy slowly entered his body as the profound energy within him kept on contracting and concentrating as the changes to his body kept on speeding up. The surrounding thunder-attributed energy seemed as though it had reached the limit and was no longer rampaging, but slowly settled down as it struck a miraculous balance along with the speed of Li Moying absorbing the energy. Li Moying's advancement process finally passed the most dangerous point as it started to enter the stable period. God Realm, Cloudy Chelene Sect. Ever since Sage Wu Ding and Sage Dong had been obstructed by Yu Die Zhuang, resulting in the lower realm genius's demise, they were totally unable to recover for a long period of time. Especially Sage Wu Ding, he had already closed his doors to visitors for more than half a month. It was until today when Sage Dong visited him to play chess, did he give his old friend some face, as he barely agreed to it. I say, old man Wu Ding, stop being so melancholic. We Cloudy Chelene clan's history has been around for at least several hundred thousands of years, and within the long history, we had many god-grade geniuses. Although that lower realm genius's aptitude was really great and it was indeed disappointing for him to have died, but since things had already happened, why do you still get yourself tangled over it for? Those who aren't clear on this would probably think that he was your son or disciple. Sage Dong held on to the chess piece as he shook his head and advised him. Sage Wu Ding gave him an angry stare. Look at what you're saying. As the Violet Sun Valley's Valley Master, all the practitioners who had passed through Violet Sun Valley's refinement are considered to be my disciples. Now that a genius has died in Violet Sun Valley, of course I don't feel good about it. Moreover speaking, do you know that even though we have a lot of god-grade geniuses in Cloudy Chelene clan, but there aren't many who could match up to that lower realm genius? Alright, I know. He was indeed very talented, and anyway I'm not even as incredible as him when I was young. But he's already gone. So saying all these, Sage Dong was advising him when he suddenly saw Sage Wu Ding pat the table hard, as he stood up from his seat. What are you doing? Sage Dong frowned and raised his head up. Sage Wu Ding's expression was very colorful. It was mixed with terror, ecstasy, puzzlement, loss and various other expressions as his eyes totally didn't fall upon Sage Dong. Instead he was staring straight ahead as though he was possessed. Sage Dong frowned as he went up and patted him on the shoulder. I say, old man Wu Ding, are you alright? This old man was especially headstrong when he was young, so surely he wouldn't have taken a change for the worse after he got old, right? Just this small setback and it had already caused him to go mad. Sage Wu Ding seemed as though he did not notice him as his eyes opened wide and mumbled to himself, how is this possible? How could such a matter have happened? This must be my illusion. It's simply inconceivable. You can also listen on. Hey, are you alright? Surely you haven't gone into chi deviation from yesterday's practicing of work skill, right? The more Sage Dong looked at him, the more he felt that something was wrong. Sage Wu Ding then suddenly recalled his senses as he heard what Sage Dong was saying and couldn't help but open his eyes wide and blew his mustache. What qi deviation? How could I possibly go into qi deviation? Old man Dong, something big has happened. What big matter has happened? I suddenly sensed that the lower realm genius in Violet Sun Valley had actually came back to life. Sage Dong went into a blank thinking that he must have heard wrongly. What? Come back to life? Didn't you say it yourself that that genius had already died in Cheline Tablet? Have your senses gone awry? But that shouldn't be so. Haven't you said that Cheline Tablet's energy wasn't enough and before he killed the spiritual beast Cheline, it's not possible for him to leave? If he really came back to life, doesn't that mean, Sage Dong really couldn't continue his words because the thought of that appearing in his mind was simply too shocking. Among the god-grade geniuses in Cloudy Cheline clan's long history, no one had been able to kill spiritual beast Cheline and to pass through the Cheline Tablet refinement. But if that lower realm genius did it, didn't that mean that he was the first person among Cloudy Cheline clan's geniuses to have done so? This sort of thing was just too ridiculous because he was after all born in the lower realm. Under the scarcity of limited resources and cultivation methods, how could such a genius possibly appear? Was he still allowing others to survive? This absolutely could not possibly have happened. However, after Sage Wu Ding heard that, he shook his head. What does it mean? Meaning he killed the spiritual beast Cheline? The truth is just that. What? How could it be possible? I don't believe in such a matter. Your senses must have gone wrong. Sage Wu Ding bore a humiliated expression. Who am I? How could my senses possibly have gone wrong? I didn't believe it initially, but after that lower realm genius came back to life, the profound energy fluctuations in Violet Sun Valley turned volatile and even the exterior array could have possibly cracked from it. No, not possibly. Heavens. Violet Sun Valley's barrier array had been shattered from the inside. Too scary. Sage Wu Ding sensed a new wave of profound energy fluctuation as his eyes popped out in surprise, just short of his jaw dropping onto the ground. If it wasn't something which he had sensed personally and believed that his senses wouldn't be wrong, then even he himself would not believe that such a matter had happened. Just where did this lower realm genius come from? Why was his innate talent so ridiculously strong to such an extent? Every single time he had assumed that this man was already genius enough, the other party always had ways to refresh his understanding, coming out with even more unbelievable stuff. Sage Dong was completely dazed. Shattered the barrier? I say, old man Wu Ding, now I'm absolutely certain that you've really gone into qi deviation. To come out with such hallucination, your illness really isn't light. If it was usual times, according to Sage Wu Ding's character, he would absolutely scold him back as it was not possible for him to allow anyone else to suspect his own judgment. But right now, he actually couldn't say a single word of rebuttal. A genius practitioner of such standard had far surpassed his imagination. Even if they were the God Realm clan's core members, they had never met this kind of genius before. For Sage Dong to have such suspicions, it simply was absolutely normal matter. But things had not come to a conclusion yet as Violet Sun Valley had once again emitted another set of news. You can also listen on. Following Violet Sun Valley's barrier being shattered, Cloudy Cheline mystic region's heaven and earth profound chi was almost sucked dry. This kind of situation seemed to only have one kind of possibility, and that was someone was advancing in the Cloudy Cheline mystic region. Furthermore, it was at least an advancement into 9th stage realm. To the extent there was a possibility of advancing to 10th stage realm from the way the profound energy fluctuations were attracted. There was an age limit to entering Violet Sun Valley's refinement. Only those genius practitioners under 30 were able to obtain the qualification to enter. Generally, those under 30s who were able to advance into the 8th stage realm were already considered extremely outstanding in God realm, and generally they were the top figures among the God-grade geniuses to do that. As for those who had advanced into the 9th stage realm before they turned 30, only those peerless geniuses from God realm's large clans throwing in an extensive amount of resources would be able to manage that. This wasn't just merely a matter of God-grade innate talent, because cultivation was after all not only about exhausting resources, but also burning money. Without the clan's full support, No matter how genius that person was, it wasn't possible to advance that quickly. Although he wasn't sure how old that lower realm genius was, but no matter what, it wasn't possible that he had reached 30 years old, right? Just what stage realm was he advancing into? By now Sage Dong had slowly accepted reality as he slowly regained his senses. In the end, upon one glance, he discovered that Sage Wuding's face seemed to have been struck by lightning as he was standing in a daze by the side. He hurriedly headed over and patted Sage Wuding. "What's the matter? What happened this time? Surely it couldn't be that your senses really made a mistake. Or that lower realm genius died again." "Pooey pooey pooey, you crow beak." Sage Wuding regained his senses as he stared angrily at him. He recounted the situation which he had sensed earlier and described it to Sage Dong. Sage Dong simply could not believe such a matter was happening, but Sage Wuding's words seemed irrefutable, so he could only treat it as it was real. Once he had accepted this installation, it seemed that whatever shocking matter which the lower realm genius had done could be accepted logically. Sage Dong thought about it and said, "What you're saying isn't totally impossible. 10th stage realm is a little too ridiculous, but if that lower realm genius is just 27 or 8 years old, advancing into the 9th stage realm is very normal. Lower realm's resources might be a tad too little, but his innate talent is right there, so how could he possibly be compared on the same level as an ordinary Earth-grade genius?" "Ari, you don't know this, that intense profound energy fluctuation had already broken Violet Sun Valley's barrier. In future, all Cloudy Chilean clan's practitioners are not able to enter it anymore. This abnormal might. Even if I asked myself honestly, when I was advancing into the 10th stage realm, it had never happened before. He might really be advancing into the 10th stage realm. A 30-year-old 10th stage realm." Sage Wuding shuddered as he gave himself a huge fright. Sage Dong was much more stable. "How can you and me be compared to this kind of genius? Haven't you said it yourself? He's the first practitioner in the entire Cloudy Chilean clan's history to have passed the Chilean tablet's refinement successfully, so the reward which he obtained might be extremely astonishing, something which you and I could not imagine. Perhaps when he's advancing, he has obtained a huge amount of resources and with numerous profound energy as reward, matching with his own innate talent. This isn't something impossible." Sage Wuding blinked. "It really seems so since you've put it in such a way," Sage Dong replied, "right? My guess is logical and reasonable. It's because you're too anxious." Sage Wuding recollected his thoughts for a moment and finally nodded. "Looks like what you said shouldn't be wrong. You can also listen on." Actually, Sage Dong's guess towards the actual scenario which had happened to Li Moying was especially close. Li Moying had indeed obtained a huge amount of profound energy replenishment after he killed the spiritual beast Chilean, hence obtaining the foundation of breaking through. But Sage Dong could never have guessed that Li Moying was already a 9th stage realm peak practitioner in his past life. His memories had been activated during the full moon's night. Under both activation of memories and provocation, he was able to succeed in advancing under coincidental opportunity. Furthermore, the most important thing was something which both sages would never have expected in their wildest dreams. Li Moying was merely 21 years old this year, much younger than what Sage Dong and Sage Wuding had expected. So it was foreseeable that based on his innate talent, breaking through to the 10th stage realm would not require a long wait of 10 years or so. Sage Dong continued, "But for the clan to come out with such a genius, it indeed is worth celebrating. Moreover, we should also try to bring him back to the main branch of the clan as soon as possible so that we won't delay his future. We had better hurry over to meet the clan leader and tell him this good news. We can also give Yu Da Zhuang a tight slap on his face at the same time." However, Wuding shook his head. "Forget it, clan leader is really in closed-door cultivation. The last time I was in a hurry to save him and under such a precarious situation, hence I just went up directly to ask for a meeting. But now that lower realm genius had already gotten himself out of the crisis, so we need not be hasty this time round. Let's wait for clan leader to come out from his closed-door cultivation, then talk about it. Moreover speaking, he's still so young and had already successfully advanced to the 9th stage realm. There should be no problems for him to ascend successfully in future. There's still time for him to undergo some experience learning there, then nurturing him when he arrives at God realm later on." Sage Dong nodded. "What you said is right as well, But this is really a huge joyous matter. I'd not expected that after so many years, among the disciples which we Cloudy Chileen clan had put in our best efforts to nurture the disciples in the clan master still hasn't picked any satisfactory candidate to be his successor. But in the end, such a genius is discovered from the lower realm. That's right, in future when he returns to the clan, I wonder what kind of commotion will he raise. Sage Wuding thought about the intense fighting among the clan's different factions and couldn't help but go into deep thoughts. In Violet Sun Valley, Li Moying's advancement finally entered the ending stage. The frequency of thunder and lightning in the sky started to subside, and the surrounding rampaging thunder-attributed energy also started to become stable and peaceful. After Li Moying had finally completed his succession from failure, there was an evolution to his physical body's physique. Under the effect from Heaven and Amp, Earth Code, the wounds on his body started to heal slowly, and his freshly grown skin was supple and smooth, crystal clear like jade, and under the refraction from the electric currents, it seemed to give off a dim glow. Just taking one look at him and one could distinctly feel that his perfectly good-looking sculpted body contained a terrifying powerful energy, as an unexcelled aura was emitted from his bone. After he shed his mortal body and underwent an exchange of bones, his meridians and dantian were much more tenacious and spacious than before, allowing him to accommodate up to 10 times the energy. Li Moying's body had been swept along by electric currents as he suspended in mid-air, while thunder-attributed energy seeped into his body, flowing along his meridians as it continued to revolve. Every single time his profound energy went one cycle, his meridians would be strengthened once again as the condensation of his profound energy in his body was raised to a new level. Over and over again, as it kept on repeating the cycle. This was an extremely slow process, and it varied among different people's innate talent, which might last between several hours to several days. You can also listen on. After Huang Yueli saw Li Moying entering the stability stage, she heaved a long sigh of relief. Even though she wasn't aware of what price Li Moying had paid in his past life, she instinctively felt extremely worried. Advancement to each practitioner had a certain amount of risk to it. Moreover, Li Moying had continuously broken through 2 large realms within 10 days, and there was a possibility of an unstable foundation. Luckily, everyone was still rather smooth. The process of Li Moying absorbing the energy lasted for 7 days and 7 nights. At last, the electric currents slowly dissipated and Li Moying steadily landed on the ground. His peach blossom eyes, which had been tightly shut, slowly opened, and an electric current flashed past his eyes as there was a deeper sense of reservation in his cold and penetrative eyes. Huang Yueli cried out with joy and shock, You've advanced successfully. That's right, the profound energy fluctuations from you is indeed that of the 9th stage realm. Li Moying nodded as his gentle gaze fell onto her sweet-looking face. Leah, I've made you worried. I'm already in the 9th stage realm right now, and I can protect you properly. Huang Yueli pouted, I can take care of myself, I don't need to rely on you. Although she said that, but she still ran swiftly into Li Moying's arms. Li Moying locked onto her waist tightly as he lowered his head and planted a kiss on her cheek while laughing in adoration. You don't need me to protect you, I'm the one who wants to stick to you shamelessly. Huang Yueli snorted and was just about to say something when she felt something nudging around her neck as she got a fright. She lowered her head to discover that a little Chileen had snuck out from Li Moying's top around his chest. It seemed to have grown a little larger, and the scales on its body didn't seem to be that soft anymore, as it felt much tougher to the touch. Apparently this little Chileen had also advanced. But because Li Moying's aura was just too strong, hence he had covered its advancement fluctuations. This little thing was obviously not at ease as it kept moving around, as though it was trying to stop its master and his fiancée from Sacred Phoenix race from getting intimate. Li Moying lowered his head several times, and whenever he wanted to kiss Huang Yueli, this little thing kept interrupting them. Huang Yueli's face turned green as she stared at little Chileen and said, If you continue to make trouble, I'll cut you up into pieces and make barbecue meat out of you. Little Chileen seemed as though it understood what she was saying as it gave off a terrified cry, or. Li Moying couldn't help but bursted out laughing as he placed his hand on little Chileen's back and kept it away. At the same time he lowered his head towards Huang Yueli and said, Why are you thinking about barbecued meat? Are you hungry? Let's grab time quickly and keep all the treasures in Violet Sun Valley, then go and eat. Huang Yueli blinked her large eyes as she asked puzzledly. Li Moying laughed, but a chilly murderous intent arose in the depths of his eyes. I'll bring you to have something first, then, we still have a huge debt, which we should settle properly. These days when his consciousness was blurry in the Qilin tablet, the most images which appeared in his mind, other than the scene where Huang Yueli self-exploded, was the scene where she was pushed down the cliff by Murong Fei. At that moment, his heart almost stopped and that ultimate terrifying feeling still stayed at the depths of his heart until now. Murong Fei, Li Lingchuan, and Leng Yifeng. Looks like I've been too merciful for these few years to allow you guys to have the guts to think that you can provoke me. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli heard his frigid words and a smile curled up on her lips. In his past life, Mu Chengying had never been a merciful man, but in this lifetime, Li Moying seemed to be much gentler this time as compared to the Long Ranger in his past life. But if one really ruffled his feathers, the consequences would absolutely be extremely miserable. Murong Fei and the others were definitely going to be in deep trouble this time round. She wasn't sure how they were going to die, so it really made her feel a little sympathy for them. Huang Yueli quickly noticed another important point. Wait, the Violet Sun Valley that you mentioned, do you mean that valley which we had been doing the refinement in for the past few days? How do you know the valley's name? And what kind of treasures are there in the valley? Let's hurry and go retrieve it. She had already declared Murong Fei and the others' death sentence and knew that these few scums weren't able to escape from Li Moying's hand, hence she totally didn't bother about them as her attention was shifted aside very quickly. In comparison, she still felt that treasures were a greater attraction for her. Li Moying took a look at her and said, "Remember that stone tablet which we found in the core region? That is the mechanism which Cloudy Qilin clan uses to assess god-grade geniuses, which is also known as Qilin Tablet. The exterior of the valley which is used to file earth-grade and heaven-grade geniuses is known as Violet Sun Valley. I've passed through god-grade geniuses' final refinement, hence a lot of information regarding Cloudy Qilin clan automatically merged into my memories. As the reward for passing the stage, I've obtained a huge amount of profound energy. Other than that, Qilin Tablet also had a huge reserve of medicinal pills and profound armaments, and some are god-grade and all these now belong to me. RRR, god-grade profound armament. Aren't those god relics then? I want to see, quickly bring me there." Huang Yueli grabbed onto his sleeve excitedly. Li Moying shook his head and laughed as he knew that this young lass would act in exactly this way. "Alright, let's head over now. But my potential exploded due to the full moon and accidentally pierced through the Qilin tablet, so I'm not sure if the treasures inside are affected or not." Huang Yueli's face turned black. "What? How could you be such a wastrel? Even damaging god relics?" Li Moying held on to his arrogantly pampered fiancée gently as they returned back to the position where the Qilin tablet was. Regarding Violet Sun Valley's exterior barrier array, it had also been shattered by Li Moying accidentally when he was advancing, so a lot of Violet Sun Valley's thunder attributed profound energy, other than the portion which Li Moying had already absorbed, had all dispersed out. Without high-density thunder attributed energy, Violet Sun Valley's magical beasts totally disappeared. The two of them didn't meet with any obstruction in their entire journey, and they soon reached the core region. Huang Yueli took a quick look at the ground to see that the Qilin tablet's top part had been blown away, revealing a dark space below. Luckily, the treasure depository was right at the bottom layer level of the Qilin tablet and had not been affected much, so most of the items inside were still intact. Huang Yueli's eyes shone immediately when she saw the treasures, and she let go of Li Moying's hand immediately as she excitedly rushed into the treasure depository. Although there are not many things here, but each piece of it are really treasures. I think I read about this bottle of heaven-level smelted god pill in an ancient record some time ago. Practitioners below the 5th stage realm who take one piece of half-god level pills will immediately break through a large realm. Even for 9th stage realm practitioners who take it will be able to have a huge breakthrough in their speed of cultivation. This 9 transformations soul recall pill is said to have the effect of reviving one from the dead. You can also listen on. Good pill, really good pills. Quick, 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 keep it. And what other pill is this? Nefarious bewitching thoughts pill? I've never heard of this. Anyway, it must be some good stuff, so let's keep it first. Huang Yueli looked left and right as she kept on crying out excitedly as she kept all the medicinal pills into the Sky Phoenix ring. After browsing through the medicinal pills, she turned towards Cloudy Chilean Clan's collection of profound armaments. These profound armaments were mostly half-god relics, and each and every piece were extremely practical rare treasures as its might was extremely strong. Among those were a few pieces of god relics. Seeing these, Huang Yueli was so excited that she almost lost herself as she pounced over to pick up every single piece while taking a careful look. It's too incredible. How is this even casted? The array patterns can actually be engraved in this way? I've tried that several times in my past time and had never succeeded at it. God Realm's armaments masters could actually finish this. And this here, there must definitely be a special smelting method. She looked left and right and was totally smitten over it as she even forgot the time. Li Moying stood at the entrance as his gentle gaze followed her wherever she went, with a slight smile beneath his eyes. This young lass, she indeed lost herself whenever she saw high-leveled profound armaments, exactly the same as in her past life. He raised up his head and looked at the sky. A bright moon had already ascended into the night sky, apparently it's already night time. But he didn't call out to remind Huang Yueli, merely allowing her to do as she wished as he silently protected her. After a long, long time, Huang Yueli had finally satisfied her first level of curiosity, keeping a large portion of the profound armaments. She picked out a god-leveled longsword and a god-leveled armor as she passed it to Li Moying. These two pieces are much better than what you're using right now, quickly change into it. Especially this long sword. It is refined with the resonance smelting method, which is much better than the amethyst light sword and suits your movements. Furthermore, it's also attached with 3 kinds of god-grade thunder attributed profound skills. Try it and you'll know. Li Moying smiled as he received it. I don't need to try, and I also know, whatever my Leah said must be correct. Huang Yueli raised her chin complacently. It's good that you know. Li Moying tried to wave the long sword, and it indeed was more compatible with himself. His heart was deeply moved because having such an intelligent fiancée was really too fortunate. But he turned back only to discover Huang Yueli staring at profound armaments again. Li Moying laughed out. Why so fascinated? It's not the first time you've seen a god relic. Don't you already have a god relic, Sky Phoenix ring, on you? Hearing this, Huang Yueli went into a pause. Speaking of the Sky Phoenix ring, no wonder I felt sensing that there's something strange about the god relics in Chilean tablet. These god relics, although the might is extremely powerful, but as compared to the Sky Phoenix ring, the disparity is a little too huge, isn't it? There wasn't only space in the Sky Phoenix ring, it was also able to seal a spiritual spirit body like Wang Cai in it, and also came with Saint Spring and various planting functions. It even could be upgraded according to her own ability, advancing accordingly. In comparison, the god relics in Chilean tablet appeared a tad too ordinary. Those were merely more powerful in terms of attack and defense, and the attaching profound skills made it more formidable, while some even had its own spirit artifacts. Li Moying's eyes also flashed past a smirk of deep thought. In this case, the grade of your Sky Phoenix ring must be a much higher grade of god relic. Even though all of them are god relics, but it should be split up into different kinds of levels. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli's fingers touched her chin as she said, seemingly in thoughts, in this way, my luck isn't that bad at all. Luckily, it wasn't a wasted effort for me to bring it out, even though it almost killed me. Speaking of that, the Sky Phoenix ring was a treasure which she obtained when she cooperated with Mu Chengying together on experience learning for the very first time. They were both in 7th stage realm then, and it took quite an huge effort to get this treasure into her hands, but in the end, it was just fragments and totally could not be used, so it was extremely disappointing for her. Whoever knew that many years later, Huang Yueli had actually died because of it, whereas this dusty treasure had been restored because of that. Li Moying apparently thought of the past as a faint smile appeared on his lips. But following that, his expression sunk again. If it wasn't for the Sky Phoenix ring, he and Huang Yueli would have been separated for so many years. To tell the truth, this thing wasn't very auspicious. However, As this treasure had an extremely high-leveled existence among the god relics, perhaps it might be hiding some secret. But these were merely his guesses, as Li Moying didn't voice these out. After Huang Yueli kept away all the treasures in Qilin Tablet, she turned back to say to the man beside her, "Let's go, it's time for us to leave. Celestial Light Sect's people all probably thought you're already dead, and if they see us appearing, just how shocked would they be? I can't wait to go back and take care of those few pieces of trash." Li Moying shook his head. "Wait a minute, there's one more thing." "What thing?" Huang Yueli blinked as she had a puzzled look on her face. Li Moying continued, "Previously when we were trapped in Violet Sun Valley, we don't know what happened in the exterior boundary of the cloudy Qilin Mystic region, but now, I should be able to sense everything that's happening in the Mystic region. It seems that someone has stayed behind in the cloudy Qilin Mystic region and had not left." Huang Yueli went into a pause. "What? Could it be that there's someone who had met with danger and missed the gathering timing? Should be different from what you're thinking of." Li Moying saw her puzzled look and didn't make any explanation. Instead he held her little hand and walked through the dense forest, then after making a few turns, they came to the front of a cave. In the cave were several ashen-faced practitioners who looked towards them, each bearing expressions of shock and joy. Eldest senior brother. You're really all right. Heavens, really scared me to death. I knew it. I knew that your ability is so strong and you definitely would not be harmed by that despicable villain like Li Lingchuan." Luo Jiun looked at them both and immediately pounced over as he started crying out of extreme happiness. Mo Yi and the rest also started to crowd over. The shadow guards were reserved in their emotions, unlike Luo Jiun, who was half a young master, crying as he wished. But it was obvious that all of them were emotionally moved from their abnormal looks. They searched around the cloudy Qilin Mystic region for a very long time and were almost about to give up hope, thinking that perhaps something had really happened to Li Moying. It was based on their irreconcilable thoughts which made them last till today. But they had not expected that Li Moying had appeared on his own. This was indeed a pleasant accidental surprise. Li Moying was hugged by Luo Jiun and initially he remained expressionless, but after a while, he finally could not tolerate it any further as he frowned and pushed him aside. "All right, you're a grown man now, what's there to cry about? You're so old already and acting like this is really too ugly. Quickly rub away your tears." Luo Jiun then retreated slightly as he asked, "Eldest senior brother, how on earth did you manage to get out of danger? You can also listen on. We have been searching for you for over a month in the cloudy Qilin Mystic region and we've tried many ways, but eventually we still aren't able to get around the cliff to climb down it. There are several times we tried to climb down, but before we even reached the depth of a few meters, we were already surrounded by those magical beasts and almost lost our life. There must be even more magical beasts in the valley below the cliff." Luo Jiun recalled the scene where he was attacked and still had lingering fears over it. Li Moying merely replied calmly, "This is a long story. I'll tell you more about it in future. In total, the valley below the cliff is a refinement ground for cloudy Qilin clan's geniuses, so both Leah and I have passed through the refinement and made it out successfully." "Ah, refinement grounds." Hearing that, Luo Jiun and the shadow guards all let out an interested expression with an obvious intent that they wanted to head in and try as well. Li Moying swept a glance past them and said, "Violet Sun Valley is extremely dangerous and it's only suitable for thunder-attributed practitioners to go on experience learning. For those with thunder-attributed innate talents of 9th grade and below to enter such a place has almost zero chances of survival." Luo Jiun heard that and his face turned as red as a tomato immediately as the expression on his face collapsed. But very quickly, he turned around and looked at Huang Yueli. "But, isn't sister-in-law isn't her attribute under fire? How could she possibly stay in the valley for such a long time?" Huang Yueli was all smiles as she looked at him and said, "Because, very coincidentally, my thunder attribute innate talent just happens to be 9th grade." "What?" When everyone heard that, their mouths were agape as their tongues were tied as their jaws almost fell onto the ground. After some time, Luo Jiun spoke out stammering, "Sigh. Sis-in-law, you're not joking, right? You're just too abnormal." Huang Yueli's fire attributed innate talent was something which everyone could tell, and it was at least a 9th grade upper level innate talent. With such an innate talent, she was already considered as a top-rated unexcelled genius in the entire Soaring Heavens continent. Plus the fact that she was also a talented armament master, well-versed in array skills, that itself was already very scary. In the end, she actually said that she also had a 9th grade talent in thunder attributed innate talent. How could this possibly be true? Luo Jiyun thought that he himself was an 8th grade metal attributed talent and was already one of the famous geniuses in South Sky region, so it was hard for him to imagine just what was it like to be of dual 9th grade talents. Huang Yueli looked at his dazed look and actually wanted to tease him, but recalling that they had an even more important matter to deal with, hence she didn't tangle too long on this topic. Alright, all of you are injured, so you'd better take these pills first. After that, let's hurry and be on our way. Be on our way. Everyone went into a blank. Huang Yueli's delicate face revealed an icy cold intent. That's right, hurry back to Celestial Light Sect to settle a debt. Li Lingchuan and Murong Fei have such guts to dare to scheme my man, so they must pay a corresponding price for it. When she said that, all of them started to stand up with their blood boiling. That's right, these few villains are just too shameless. How dare they dare to take action against our master? That Dumba *S really thought that sitting onto young sect master's position meant that he could really be comparable to our master. Hadn't he even taken a piss and took a look at his own reflection in it? A mere celestial light sect, master can't even be bothered about it. Master is just giving sect master face, hence tolerated with them for such a long time. Did they think that he's afraid? This time. We absolutely cannot let it rest. Everyone was fired up as righteous indignation filled their chests as they couldn't wait to rush back to Celestial Light Sect immediately, dragging Li Lingchuan and Murong Fei out to whip their corpses 100 times. You can also listen on. After they had finally swore their loyalty, everyone suddenly realized that something was amiss. They all recalled the scene earlier only to realize where the problem was. The person who said those bold and visionary words wasn't Li Moying but Huang Yueli. Everyone was disheveled. What was wrong with that? Shouldn't it had been Li Moying who appeared to teach those people who had schemed on his fiancée a lesson? But why did it turn out to be Huang Yueli who said such words? And even saying such things making the fellow who schemed her man to pay a corresponding price. This feeling was too indisposed. However, Li Moying's lips secretly curled upwards as he stood by the side. His Leah was always like this, always protecting him as part of what she should do and never hiding behind him just because her battle power couldn't match up to his. Although he had the ability and determination to protect his beloved woman, but every time he saw Huang Yueli fight back indignantly because of him, his heart would always feel touched. Huang Yueli retrieved pills from the Sky Phoenix ring and distributed them to everyone accordingly. These pills were all 6th level upper grade and above, and it unsurprisingly caused gasps of exclamation among everyone. Huang Yueli generously gave each person a bottle and finally she walked to the front of Yuan Ziyu. Not knowing what these people had experienced in the cloudy Chelene mystic region, Yuan Ziyu had long lost that elegant demeanor, gentlemanly look. On the contrary, there were many broken and worn-out holes on his clothes and some were even stained with blood as his face was filled with patches of green and purple bruises. It looked like he had suffered quite a lot during the learning experience. But Huang Yueli could also sense that the profound energy fluctuations from him had evidently increased by quite a bit. You've advanced. And advanced by a large realm? Huang Yueli queried in shock and joy. When Yuan Ziyu had just followed her into the cloudy Chelene mystic region, his cultivation was only at 4th stage realm, and if it wasn't for her as his mistress, there was no way that he could get a quota into the mystic region. But now, he had already become a 5th stage realm practitioner. Based on Yuan Ziyu's innate talent, this cultivation speed was rather astonishing. Yuan Ziyu nodded and said, "That's right, I've encountered some chances in the cloudy Chelene mystic region and ran into a bit of luck, so I grabbed the chance and advanced successfully." Hearing that, Moyi couldn't help but butted in, "Third miss." Brother Yuan had been extremely hardworking in searching for chances as his entire thoughts were that he absolutely could not let third miss lose face. When Huang Yueli heard that, joy filled her face as she nodded her head and said, "Yuan Ziyu. You've indeed given me a surprise. I'd not expected that you'd choose to stay on in the mystic region. A complicated emotion flashed past Yuan Zhayu as he shook his head vigorously. Since I've already signed the master-servant contract, I should naturally do what I should do. Actually, I'm not the only one who worked hard. Brother Mo Yi and the others had all obtained breakthroughs in the mystic region, so what I've achieved isn't really very outstanding. These weren't merely humble words. The practitioners who had chosen to stay behind this time round to search for Li Moying had all met with various kinds of dangers, and at the same time, they had continuously obtained breakthroughs amid the crisis. Mo Yi was the fastest in terms of advancement, and he had already reached the 6th stage realm peak, just one step short of advancing into the 7th stage realm. The remaining others had also advanced by a large realm. Huang Yueli nodded her head satisfactorily as she said, "Be assured, following me. You will not regret it. You can also listen on." There was a time limit to the master-servant contract that she had with Yuan Zhayu, and furthermore it was only effective when she was alive. If she died accidentally, then Yuan Zhayu would regain his freedom. Hence, from the angle of the greatest benefit, Yuan Zhayu should have chosen to leave the mystic region himself. However, he chose to take the risk of not being able to leave the dangerous place and to remain right here. This friendship, Huang Yueli would not forget about it. It was her principle to repay kindness rendered upon her and take revenge back on her foes. She took another look deeply at Yuan Zhayu and turned around to walk towards Li Moying as she hooked her arm around his and swung. "All right, now we can finally leave." Li Moying allowed the young lady to act like a spoilt child while hanging his arm as his expression seemed a little arrogantly pampered while his cool peach-blossomed eyes grazed past her face, without saying a single word. Huang Yueli felt a little strange as she turned her head to take a look at him. "Moying, we can leave now. What's the matter with you? Why are you in a daze?" Li Moying's lips curled up slightly as he gave a cold snort. "Young Miss Huang is finally all done? I see that you're rather happy talking to other men, so much that you've forgotten that your own fiancé is standing right next to you." "Ah!" Huang Yueli went into a blank, and following that she immediately burst out into laughter. "You? What's the matter with you? Why are you being jealous? These are all your subordinates. I'm merely helping you to beguile them, otherwise why would I spend so much effort talking to them? You're a little too petty." Li Moying gave a slight hmph as he lowered his voice, seeming as though he was muttering to himself. "Really? But there's one here who isn't my subordinate." The look which Yuan Zhayu looked towards Huang Yueli was something which he understood very clearly as a man. That fellow obviously has a crush on Huang Yueli, but he probably knew that he wasn't worthy of her, hence he used the excuse of being a shadow guard to stay beside Huang Yueli. That fellow had stayed in cloudy Qilin mystic region not because of his loyalty only. Only his Leah was so retarded in this aspect, which was why she had not detected the other party's feelings. "What?" Huang Yueli didn't hear what he was saying as she raised her head up to question closely with purity in her crystal-clear big eyes. Li Moying gave a sigh as he caressed her delicate face and switched the topic. "Nothing, we should be going." When they spoke about leaving, Mo Yi and the rest all frowned. Mo Yi said, "Master, the agreed date to reactivate the mystic region by both sects had already passed by for more than a month, and I'm assuming that no one had stayed outside to look for us. If we want to leave, then we have to try to open the entrance ourselves, and that requires a huge amount of profound energy to support it." Li Moying opened his mouth calmly and cut off his words. "No matter, I have a way. Everyone just crowd around me will do." Under normal circumstances, Mo Yi's would naturally not be wrong. Reactivating the mystic region required 12 ninth stage realm practitioners to work together, and it wasn't something which they were capable of. But for Li Moying, this wasn't the case. As Cloudy Qilin clan's first even god-grade genius to have passed the Qilin tablet refinement successfully, not only had he received all the inheritances in the Qilin tablet, he had also received the authority to control Violet Sun Valley fully and special privilege to enter or leave Cloudy Qilin mystic region as he wished. With him around, leaving this place didn't take any effort at all. Indeed, with a change in Li Moying's thoughts, Cloudy Qilin mystic region's sky activated a brand new pathway. "Let's go." Li Moying held Huang Yueli's slender waist as he led her to pass through the path first, while the rest of them followed up one after another. You can also listen on. At the present moment in the Celestial Light sect. The entire sect's entrance was filled with lights as it was bustling with excitement. Li Lingchuan and Murong Fei each wore a set of official court dress as they stood at the front of Celestial Light sect's main entrance, welcoming various guests who came over to visit from many different large sects. Today, to Celestial Light sect, was an extremely important day, and was the start of a brand new beginning. Because today was the day where Li Lingchuan would be officially designated as Celestial Light sect's new young sect master, and also the day when he got officially engaged to Murong Fei. This was the day when Li Lingchuan felt flushed with success. He dressed up in his best attire and he was high-spirited as he stood at the front of the mountain entrance, filled with great aspiration. Almost all those large powerhouses within South Sky region had all received Celestial Light sect's invitation card, inviting them to witness the birth of their new young sect master. Those guests were headed over as spectators were full of praises and congratulations when they saw Li Lingchuan, almost sending him to heaven. Mr. Li, Ayo, wrong, it's young sect master Li. Congratulations, congratulations. I knew long ago that you have a fortunate life ahead and your innate talent is the top within South Sky region, so you'd definitely come out with big achievements in future. Within such a short time, you've already become the young sect master. Isn't that so? Mr. Li is South Sky region's first-class super genius, and what's rarer is that his moral standing, courage and insight are all first-rated too. I've always felt that it's a waste of talent for young sect master Li to only be a direct disciple. Only the position of young sect master is worthy of you. Indeed, you've finally become Celestial Light sect's young sect master eventually. Sect Master Murong has great insight, to be able to tell that young Sect Master Li's ability and character are excellent, and is able to take on huge responsibility. Not only had he passed on the position of young Sect Master to you, he's also married his eldest daughter to you as well. Eldest Miss Murong is the #1 beauty among our South Sky region, the #1 talented young lady. Even she fancies young Sect Master Li. It's obvious what kind of potential and person young Sect Master is. Congratulations to young Sect Master Li for the double happiness. That's right, double happiness. Congratulations. Peals of praise kept on coming, making Li Lingchuan extremely comfortable as he was elated. Especially when he recalled the first time when Li Moying had been designated to be the young sect master, although the guests were much more than now, but most of them had a gloomy look as they came and went by quickly, totally not flattering Li Moying at all. Li Lingchuan naturally assumed that under this comparison, of course Li Lingchuan's character had gained the approval of everyone. His potential, apparently wasn't any worse off than Li Moying. Of course, there was no way that he would find out that the reason as to why those guests didn't flatter Li Moying, one of it was because Li Moying's character was just too cold and no one dared to be rash in front of him. Another reason was because Li Moying's innate talent was just too abnormal. The minute many presidents from those powerhouses thought of the fact that for the next several hundreds or even thousands of years, they would be suppressed by that demonic grade genius over their heads and that their own sects would never be able to be known to the world, how would their feelings possibly get lifted up? Some of them couldn't even be bothered to come out with polite words. In comparison, Li Lingchuan wasn't much of a threat in various powerhouses' eyes. To the extent that, in front of a gem like Li Moying only made him especially useless, no different from a dumbass. But unfortunately, this dumbass was still immensely pleased with himself. As everyone found him laughable, so they wouldn't be stingy with a few words of flattering. Since nice words don't require any money, so they could ridicule him all they wanted behind his back and Li Lingchuan would never find out. You can also listen on. Right after the bunch of sect masters and elders from other large sects had exchanged polite greetings with Li Lingchuan, the minute they walked into the door, their faces indeed took a change immediately. They took a quick glance around and couldn't help but gathered together to ridicule him. Look at the conceited and arrogant look from that vile character. All of us are the elders from large sects, but he doesn't even bother to look at us in the eye. How could he do that? Did he really think that having the position of Celestial Light sect's young sect master meant that he was really Li Moying? Isn't that so? Li Lingchuan didn't think that he is Li Moying, he just feels that he's much more incredible than Li Moying. I really wonder where his confidence came from. But this is a great thing. Originally I thought that the sects in South Sky region could only continue breathing under Celestial Light sect, but whoever knew that Li Moying actually got into an accident while on an experience learning trip in the Mystic region. Now that this dumbass Li Lingchuan is taking over the position, it's really a great help from the heavens. Haha, you're right. Only Li Moying has such excellent innate talent. Although he's not my sect's disciple, but his demise still made some people sigh. If I had a say in it, it's you who's too naive. I heard the rumors around the world that Li Moying's death has something to do with Li Lingchuan. It was said that Li Lingchuan had plotted against his own senior brother, causing him to die in the Mystic region. What? There's actually such a thing? How could that be possible? Where did you hear that from? There's quite a number of people who heard of this. It's rumored that this time it was Celestial Light sect and West Sky region's Green Clouds sect entering the Mystic region for experience learning together, and Green Cloud sect's disciples went around spreading these. Even West Sky region's large sects all know about this rumor. Heavens! If it's really true, that would be too scary. Even plotting against his own senior brother, that's an intolerable behavior. Is Murongde getting foolish as he grows old? How could he allow such a thing that is worse than a beast to take on the position of young sect master and even marry his own eldest daughter to him? So that's why they say Celestial Light sect is finished. It really matches the saying that fortune rests in the east of the river for 30 years but turns to the west after 30 years pass. 1. Similar rumors were heard around every corner of Celestial Light sect. The guests from other sects who were spreading the rumors mostly avoided Li Lingchuan himself, but in front of other Celestial Light sect's ordinary disciples, they had nothing to fear. Because Li Lingchuan wasn't Li Moying. When Li Moying was young sect master, he had absolute prestige in Celestial Light sect. If anyone were to talk bad about him in the sect, it would immediately cause an uproar by the masses of the disciples, invoking a group fight. But now that there were so many guests from other sects who gossiped about Li Lingchuan's unpleasant talk unbridledly, yet no one was upset over this. On the contrary, Celestial Light sect's disciples secretly gazed towards Li Lingchuan's direction as a sliver of hatred flashed past their eyes. Regarding the rumor of Li Lingchuan causing Li Moying's death, they naturally had heard of it. Because there were quite a number of direct disciples present and they had heard the truth when Luo Jiyun said it out. Although they didn't dare to offend Li Lingchuan, and they didn't debate the truth with him in front of the Mystic region's entrance, but they had spread the rumor under the tables by quite a bit. Although none of them were the witness, but compared to Luo Jiyun and Li Lingchuan's usual character, everyone felt that Luo Jiyun's words were apparently more convincing. Moreover speaking, Li Moying's potential was clear for all to see. Just how powerful he was something which Celestial Light sect's disciples had all experienced. Even his fiancée Bai Ruoli was also a first-class talented lady. 1. It means that life is full of ups and downs you can also listen on. The two of them joined hands and easily allowed Lung Yifeng to kill him so easily. Wasn't that a comedy? It's just an unbelievable story. Li Lingchuan on the other hand, because he was a disciple of their sect, so there were many ways which he could come out with to hoodwink Li Moying, thereby successfully plotting against him. Li Lingchuan's character was originally arrogant and cold-blooded, with a look of hatred to exact revenge, hence he wasn't exactly able to capture the hearts of those in Celestial Light sect. Now with such a rumor, there was a 99% of the masses of disciples going against him, but no one could do anything about him at all. Right after Li Moying's death, Murongde knew that the possibility of Celestial Light sect becoming Soaring Heavens continent's first-class powerhouse no longer existed, hence, he had no heart to manage the sect's affairs, therefore he passed the authority over to Li Lingchuan. With absolute authority in Li Lingchuan's hands, he started to suppress those people who dared to oppose him. He also had Murong Fei to stand up for him, so if any disciple dared to say anything bad about him, they would suffer from an insane level of revenge. Sigh. Today is Young Sect Master's coronation day. It really makes me feel that there's nothing left to live for. Are we going to let such a despicable villain reign over our heads forever? Someone shot a furious look towards Li Lingchuan's back as he couldn't help but grumbled angrily. Hush, are you mad? How dare you even say such things? Guests from other sects can comment. Young sect master, but we can't. Have you forgotten about what happened to those people like Su Qingyu and the others who had once followed by Ruoli? What has happened to them now? Don't tell me you want to end up like them. The former had a shock as he recalled something, and his expression turned steely green and immediately shut his mouth, not daring to speak a single word more. A vile character like Li Lingchuan didn't have abilities like Li Moying, and he couldn't even be compared to Li Moying when handling the sect's affairs. But when he exacted revenge, he's had many different ways of doing so. Like those people who came from Celestial Light Academy, they were merely Celestial Light Sect's ordinary disciples and didn't dare to discuss about Li Lingchuan's matter. But only because they had once stayed in the same academy as Li Moying and were acquainted to Huang Yueli, hence they suffered the most severe revenge. Especially for Su Qingyu and the others, they were directly sent to the most dangerous demonic ore cave for mining. Demonic ore cave had abundant fantasy demonic rock, and each piece of it was priceless. But these kinds of rocks itself had its own spiritual nature and would form a special kind of demonic tone in the cave, to cause confusion onto those practitioners' soul trace and consciousness who entered the demonic ore cave. In the past, those practitioners who entered the demonic ore cave to mine had willingly accepted the missions, and most of them were inner or even direct disciples who thought that under the provocation of the demonic tone, it might lead to a better method of cultivation. In order to seek a breakthrough in their bottlenecks, they proactively went ahead with this. But now, Li Lingchuan had coerced Su Qingyu and the others to mine in the demonic ore cave from day to night. These people originally had ordinary innate talents, and their cultivation base was the lowest in the entire Celestial Light sect. They had been shut in the demonic ore cave for a long time, hence quite a number of them had already gone insane. There were often other Celestial Light sect's disciples who passed by the demonic ore cave, and hearing those peals of miserable shrieks, it sounded extremely horrifying. For a moment, Li Lingchuan's method of killing the chickens to warn the monkey was effective, and in an instant, it lessened the number of people who went against him. All of Celestial Light sect's disciples didn't dare to voice out their displeasures and could only watch Li Lingchuan hugging Murong Fei with an extremely conceited and complacent look. They were suffocated by this so much that they were almost going to sustain an internal injury. Everyone's inner hearts were sighing with sorrow. Why had Li Moying been harmed by this kind of despicable and shameless thing? Could it be true that good men could not live for long, whereas scourges reigned for a millennium? Heaven was really unjust. You can also listen on. The process of welcoming guests lasted for an entire morning. At midday, the coronation of young sect master and engagement ceremony was held right in front of the public square in front of Celestial Light sect's main door, as it was about to start. With the support of Murong Fei, Murongda walked up the stage slowly. The entire public square quietened down. Distinguished guests from various powerhouses in South Sky region and disciples of Celestial Light sect, it's an honor to have invited all of you here. I believe that everyone knows that today is an extremely important date to us Celestial Light sect. From today onwards, our sect will have a successor, and my daughter Murong Fei has a man who she can entrust her life to. Murongda's gaze brushed past Li Lingchuan and Murong Fei, who were standing beside him, as he opened his mouth to speak ruefully. He had naturally valued Li Moying much more, no matter if it was for young sect master or his son-in-law, it was Li Moying who was much more dependable. But now he had no other choices. Li Lingchuan seemed to have seen through his thoughts as he took a step upwards and said, "Master, please be assured. This disciple will never let down your hopes and valuation, and will lead Celestial Light sect to new height. I will also let Fea become the most fortunate and glorious lady in the entire South Sky region." Murong Fei's lips immediately surfaced a smile. To receive a confession so openly, naturally was a very glamorous matter. Especially before this, it had always been her to stick to Li Moying. Not to mention being affectionate to openly, he simply just treated her as heir. Now that Li Lingchuan had been so attentive towards her, it had satisfied her vanity, and adding on to the considerations of reality benefits, she immediately casted Li Moying behind her. When Murongda heard that, he nodded as a praiseful look appeared in his eyes. "Ian, not bad, this master naturally believes in you. But in terms of cultivation, you need to put more effort into it. to get closer to your eldest senior brother who had already passed on. When Li Lingchuan heard these words, his expression stiffened a little and he nodded his head a little while later. Yes, I will obey Master's teaching. He had thought that he had already successfully brainwashed this old man completely, but he had not imagined that his heart was still longing for Li Moying. He even dared to compare him against Li Moying. Could it be that he was so incomparable to Li Moying, even if that fellow was already dead, but yet he could only live under his shadow? But no matter how much Murongde longed for Li Moying was totally useless. Just like those ordinary disciples, there was no meaning in opposing him becoming young sect master, because there was no way a dead person could possibly be revived. There were many practitioners from other sects who heard the conversation on the stage and they exchanged glances as they started applauding together. But secretly, they started to engage in commentaries softly. What's going on? What do you guys say? Does Sect Master Murong know or not about Li Lingchuan causing Li Moying's death? I think he probably doesn't know much. Li Lingchuan is not an idiot, so he definitely wouldn't let this news emit to his ears. But for Murongde to not know about this completely without a single doubt, I don't believe it at all. After all, he had been a sect master for several hundreds of years, so how could he be that silly? Then why did he still? That's easy to understand. If you were in his position, you probably could only do this as well. Li Lingchuan's innate talent, although compared to Li Moying, he's a complete trash, but among the talents in South Sky region, he is still one of the top few. He has the highest innate talent and ability in the current Celestial Light Sec. What else could old man Murong do? Just act as if you don't know a thing, as long as you don't expose him directly, that will do. You can also listen on. TSK, listen to what you said. I really feel indignant for Li Moying. When he was young sect master, just how much benefits had he obtained for Celestial Light Sect? How many tournaments had he won? In the end, don't say old man Murong don't remember him, just look at that eldest Miss Murong. In the past, she was so smitten towards Li Moying until even outsiders like us were touched by it. But now he had just died for how long? She can't wait to remarry. Sigh, this kind of woman, no wonder Li Moying doesn't fancy her. While everyone was chipping it, the coronation ceremony had officially begun. Murongde stood in the middle of the stage as he recited an entire page of incantation. The rough meaning was to report Celestial Light Sect's situation to those ancestors and seniors who had already passed on. After he finished reciting, he beckoned towards Li Lingchuan. Li Lingchuan immediately showed a look of joy as he hurriedly took quick steps towards Murongde and knelt down. Murongde was looking at him intently as he opened his mouth slowly. Lingchuan, Celestial Light Sect's future is now entrusted into your hands, so you must cultivate hard, regulating yourself strictly without any laziness. Yes, Master, please be assured. Li Lingchuan replied. His heart was beating fast as he had reached the limit of excitement. For the past 10 over years, he had schemed various times and even doing many despicable things, even colluding with other sects practitioners to murder his own senior brother. All these were just for this moment. His motive was finally going to be accomplished. Murongde's voice rang from above his head. This sect master announced that direct disciple Li Lingchuan is now officially Celestial Light Sect's 253rd. Wait. I don't agree. An icy cold voice suddenly rang from the direction of the mountain entrance, interrupting Murongde's words. Everyone present was all dazed as they didn't expect anyone to open their mouths to talk at this moment. Don't think that they were in an intense discussion privately earlier. The minute Murongde started off the ceremony officially, everyone immediately shut their mouths. The coronation ceremony officially started, and for such a solemn occasion like that, who dared to casually butt in? This was an impolite action, and that was simply a clear provocation towards the Celestial Light Sec. Anyone with a bit of brains would never do such a thing. Murongde's face revealed an unpleasant look and the movements of his hand paused as he turned back towards the entrance and spoke out sharply. Who dares to interrupt Celestial Light Sect's young sect master's coronation ceremony? How dare you? What audacity! The others also started to bustle as they all looked out towards the entrance. Only Li Lingchuan, who was kneeling on the ground, upon hearing this voice, made his brain went buzz. This voice, was just too alike. Could it be that man had suddenly came back to life? Li Lingchuan's heart pounded wildly, but he immediately convinced himself, impossible, this is just impossible. It must be my misperception. It must be because I'm usually too afraid of Li Moying, so I'm having this hallucination. Dead people cannot come back to life. How could I even scare myself like that? Thinking of this, he too turned his head back as he cried out sharply towards the direction of the entrance. Who is that? How dare you play punk at Celestial Light Sec? And even dare to deceive us? Still not showing yourself quickly. Li Lingchuan, who gave you the guts to talk to yours truly like that? A frigidly cold but magnetic voice rang once again as it slowly floated in from the entrance. You can also listen on. Earlier, when that person spoke for the first time, it was a few mere words and many of them had not reacted. But now he had spoken, a strange familiarity rang among everyone's ears. Momentarily, everyone was stunned as they exchanged glances, and all they could see were shock and surprise in one another's eyes. Everyone had the same thoughts in their minds. This is just too ridiculous. Could it be that Li Moying's departed spirit is back to Celestial Light Sect to demand vengeance for his grievances? This was simply seeing a ghost alive. Whereas at this moment, a powerful thunder attributed profound energy expanded from the mountain entrance's position. This profound energy came in the form of a lofty scale as it caused surging waves with an unequaled overbearing might, as though a heavy hammer knocking onto everyone's chest. Those disciples with slightly weaker cultivations immediately turned green as their chests felt a surging turbulence. Everyone present had a change of expression as they had an unbelievable guess in their mind. They subconsciously split up in the middle to leave out a path from the mountain entrance. A tall lanky figure walked in slowly from the entrance. His speed wasn't very fast, but every step was steady and firm, emitting a powerful profound energy aura, making him appear as though he was a majestic tall mountain in everyone's eyes. Everyone's gazes fell upon his face. Following that, everyone's mouth opened wide as their eyes popped out from their eye sockets in a dazed look, totally unable to say a word. Li Moying. Murongde was the first to regain his senses as he opened his mouth in disbelief. That outstanding, handsome look on that perfectly featured face had no flaw on it. His imposing manner was strong, and he was a man with excellent abilities which no one present could even recognize wrongly. Li Moying. South Sky Region's first genius in the long history, Li Moying. Celestial Light Sect's once young sect master Li Moying. Only he had such peerless handsome looks, and only he had such unparalleled aura. It was enough to make everyone present bow down and submit to him uncontrollably. This was the genuine persona Li Moying himself, not some grieved spirit, but a living man. As the profound energy fluctuations emitting from him was too strong, even those who stood very far away from him could sense that pressurizing suffocation which was not something that an incomplete spirit could achieve. Murongde looked blankly at his own eldest disciple walking nearer, and he didn't manage to regain his senses in time. How did you? Li Moying had not appeared alone. By his side stood Huang Yueli, who was dressed in a white dress with delicate embroidered flowers, and when the two of them stood next to each other, the impeccable image of a talented man and a beautiful lady made them look like the perfect couple. As for those shadow guards who had disappeared in the cloudy Chelene mystic region, all of them reappeared as they followed behind him. Li Moying clutched Huang Yueli's hand as he looked straight and walked towards Murongde. After he stopped, he opened his mouth and spoke out coldly. Master, how have you been? I know that you're anxious to find a new successor for the sect, but unfortunately, I'm not dead yet. So this so-called coronation ceremony is merely a joke. Murongde stared at him as his mouth opened wide. But, haven't you already fallen in the cloudy Chelene mystic region? No, gone missing. I personally led men to search for you around the surroundings for a few days, but we didn't even catch a glimpse of your shadow. Now that the mystic region has already closed for such a long time, how is it possible for you to leave that place by yourself? You can also listen on. Li Moying's lips curled up, which seemed like a smile but not exactly one. However, Beneath his eyes was a chilly murderous intent which made anyone who saw him born fear in their heart. Even an established ninth-stage realm practitioner like Murongda, when meeting against his sight, couldn't help but have his hair stood up on its ends. Li Moying said coldly, "What's the matter?" Could it be that Master had assumed that since the mystic region is shut, then there's really no way to come out? As long as I want to, I'd naturally have a way to do so, but that's the ancient mystic region. Our two sects with so many ninth-stage realm elders, spending so much profound energy together before we could barely activate the cloudy Chilean mystic region's entrance. Moreover, it can only be opened at a special designated timing. How could you possibly? Li Moying didn't reply, merely casting his gaze towards Li Lingchuan who was by the side. At this present moment, Li Lingchuan was already frightened out of his wits as his face turned as white as paper. Sweat kept dripping down from his forehead and his body kept on trembling uncontrollably. Never in his wildest dreams had he expected that Li Moying had actually left the cloudy Chilean mystic region alive. But how was this possible? He had personally witnessed Li Moying pursuing Huang Yueli and had directly jumped down that cliff. The bottom of the cliff was filled with high-leveled magical beasts, so no matter how strong Li Moying was, he absolutely could not have survived under the attack of so many high-leveled magical beasts. Moreover speaking, even if Li Moying's luck was really good and had not been eaten alive by those magical beasts, but it wasn't possible for him to use his own strength to activate the cloudy Chilean mystic region by himself. No matter how Li Lingchuan thought, there was no way he could understand what on earth was going on. But this fascinating thing had already happened right now. Li Lingchuan, Li Moying swept an indifferent glance at him as he slowly spoke out, "You don't seem very happy to see me come back. What are you afraid of? Have you not thought of the possibility that I could still return alive?" Li Lingchuan's face turned deadly white, but he said, Eldest senior brother, what joke, are you cracking? How could I possibly not be happy? You're able to come back peacefully, so this is something which we Celestial Light sect should celebrate about. Of course I'm happy." He forcibly curled up his lips as he braced himself to say these words. At the same time, his thoughts swiftly turned in his mind, continuing to think if there was any way to whitewash himself, or some method which would allow him to escape from Li Moying's hands. However, he was in a fluster and couldn't think of any ideas at all. Li Moying's immense profound energy aura had securely locked onto him, and under such a strong imposing presence enveloping him, as long as he moved an inch, he would definitely suffer from Li Moying's profound energy's restraint. Li Moying laughed coldly, "Really? Junior brother Li really knows how to play dumb. Did you think I've got amnesia? That day in cloudy Chilean mystic region's core region, you made a move towards me and my fiancé and attempted to push me down the cliff. These are things which had barely happened just slightly over a month ago. No, it's not like that. Eldest senior brother, you've mistaken. Things are not what you think it is. Listen to my explanation." Li Lingchuan's face was deadly pale as he kept on shaking his head vigorously. Although he was anxious, but he instinctively knew that if he absolutely could not admit to doing such things, to verify that he had done such a crime, otherwise there was no doubt that he would end up dead today. Li Moying was never soft-handed when he killed someone. If he could find a reason to get over this and refuted Li Moying's accusation, even if Li Moying wanted to kill him, Murongda would absolutely not ignore this. You can also listen on. Li Lingchuan's thoughts flew swiftly about in his mind when a light suddenly lit up. "Eldest senior brother, you've really mistaken. That day by the side of the cliff, I absolutely wasn't trying to harm you, but to aid you. While I was in the mystic region going on my experience learning, I accidentally heard that Lung Yifeng was going to deal you with a deadly move, so in order to save you, I rushed over. Just as we were crossing hands at the cliff, eldest senior brother, you suddenly appeared, hence you've misunderstood." His words sounded apparently right but were actually wrong. He thought that since no one actually saw the true scenario and Lung Yifeng had already died, Murong Fei was just like a grasshopper like him hanging on the same thread, so as long as he denied it all the way, who could expose him? His words had just fallen when Li Moying's murderous intent became even fiercer, apparently angered by his shameless agitation as his fingers moved, and he had the intent to kill him immediately. However, right at this moment, from his back, a figure suddenly scurried out as he pointed at Li Lingchuan's nose. swearing and cursing at him. You, simply turning black into white. I've never seen such a shameless scum like you before. After seeing that suddenly popped out figure clearly, everyone went into a commotion yet again. This is Sect Master Murong's other direct disciple, called Luo what again? His Luo Jiyun. Right, that's him. Didn't they say that he had also died in that Mystic Regions experience learning trip? How did he also come back to life? Looks like there's indeed something suspicious in this matter. Celestial Light Sect's water is really deep. Luo Jiyun originally didn't wanted to interrupt his eldest senior brother, but on seeing Li Moying almost wanting to murder someone, he couldn't hold himself back. It wasn't that his ill-timed saintliness was acting up to stop Li Moying from killing him, but he was afraid that if Li Moying had a disagreement and made a move, then it would really make Li Lingchuan's lie become the truth. He knew that Li Moying couldn't be bothered to talk with this kind of scum and didn't bother about his reputation among the ordinary practitioners, but he, Luo Jiyun, minded that very much. His own senior brother was so suave and awesome, how could he possibly allow this kind of villain to splash dirty water onto him? He must expose Li Lingchuan's shameless filthy mouth. Luo Jiyun suddenly popped out and Li Moying was worried that he might injure him, so his action took a pause. What are you doing out here for? Luo Jiyun said loudly, eldest senior brother, I've had enough of Li Lingchuan, that hypocritical villain, so just let me finish my word. He turned towards Li Lingchuan. Li Lingchuan, in the past I have still treated you as my senior brother. Occasionally those small little tricks which you plotted to scheme eldest senior brother, I'd only treated those as you were acting in a moment of folly, hence I didn't complain about you in front of master. But you actually colluded with outside people and almost got eldest senior brother killed. You're simply shameless to the extreme. That day's matters, did you really think that it's done real secretively? There's no witness. Unfortunately, I am not dead and is still alive and kicking, and I've witnessed everything that had happened that day. Let's put aside that fact that you and Lung Yifeng colluded together to harm eldest senior brother. You even used me to threaten sister-in-law and coerced her to be together with Lung Yifeng. Luo Jiyun spoke frankly with assurance, explaining in detail what had happened. Following his description, the public square's discussion got louder and louder. There was a huge disparity between both their sayings, and evidently, Li Lingchuan had just tried to brush past this by giving vague descriptions without any elaboration, whereas Luo Jiyun was able to speak out each single detail clearly, explaining the cause and effect clearly. So anyone with a bit of judgment would be able to tell who had a higher possibility of speaking the truth. Heavens, so the rumor is actually true. Li Lingchuan had really dealt his own senior brother a deadly blow, just because of the position of young sect master? You can also listen on. This is really the greatest gossip ever. Li Lingchuan actually did something so disgraceful, even daring to scheme his own senior brother. It seems that Celestial Light Sect is absolutely going to have their reputation going down the drain this time round. Isn't that so? Celestial Light Sect had always been South Sky Region's major powerhouse's leader and is usually almighty, but whoever knew that this time round they created such a scandal like this? Both parties actually had a confrontation in front of so many strongholds. TSK, I think it won't take a few days before this scandal is going to revolve around the entire Soaring Heavens continent. This is really going to be bustling. Various guests from those major sects were roaring with excitement as they pricked up their ears while gloating over the misfortune. Murongde was shaking all over from this piece of news. Even though he had subconsciously considered this possibility, but he still wasn't willing to believe that such a thing could really happen. Jiyun. What you said, is it the truth? You must report the truth and not take any sides. Is it really your second senior brother who harmed eldest senior brother? Luo Jiyun replied bitterly, Master, I'm not siding anyone. What I said is the entire truth. I can swear to heaven that if I've lied in any way, may I be struck by lightning. Murongde turned his vision towards Li Lingchuan. Li Lingchuan's heart thumped hard and he clenched his teeth and continued denying, You still dare to say you're not taking any sides? You and Li Moying are on good terms and had always excluded me. This is an open secret within Celestial Light Sect. Which disciple doesn't know about this? Why are you putting up an act? According to what you say, I'm the one who harmed eldest senior brother, then will everyone please judge this reasonably? Based on my cultivation, how could I possibly harm eldest senior brother? Even if it was a sneak attack, there's no way I could do anything to him. Usually, Li Lingchuan would never admit that Li Moying's ability was much stronger than his. But now, in front of so many people trying to whitewash himself, he could only admit to this fact through his clenched teeth. When he said these words out, he sensed that he seemed to have been slapped by someone, which made him feel extremely embarrassed. What made him even more embarrassed was that when he said that, no one actually casted any doubts towards his ability, as everyone deeply felt that what he said was reasonable, as they all started to nod their heads. Isn't that so? The disparity between the two of their abilities are just too far apart. Li Lingchuan probably can't even take one move from Li Moying. A genius like Li Moying, even if it was Li Lingchuan and Leng Yifeng added together, could not possibly harm him. This matter indeed sounds a little too ridiculous. Could Luo Jiyun really have exaggerated the entire matter? A small portion of people expressed the doubts in their minds, and when these discussions entered everyone's ears, not only did Li Lingchuan not feel the joy of escaping death, instead he felt his face turning fiery red. So which he had thought highly of himself during this period of time, the others were actually treating him like a joke. In other people's minds, he could not even be compared to one finger of Li Moying's. When Luo Jiyun heard the doubts, he pursed his lips and seemed as though he hesitated for a moment, but eventually, he still opened his mouth. Eldest senior brother fell for it, of course isn't because his ability didn't match up to you, but because Murong Fei was one of his accomplices. She was the one who personally pushed Lil sister-in-law down the cliff, and eldest senior brother jumped down the cliff in order to save sister-in-law. Otherwise, just based on you and Leng Yifeng, how could you possibly have harmed eldest senior brother? He originally wanted to leave some face for his master Murongde, thinking of exposing Murong Fei's crimes in private later. But now, seeing that Li Lingchuan had shamelessly continued to whitewash himself, he could only say this out. You can also listen on. When this was told, it immediately caused a brand new commotion among the crowd. Celestial Light Sect scandal was getting bigger and bigger. Not only did it have to do with the fight over young sect master's authority, it even implicated the sect master's daughter. Li Lingchuan's lies had been exposed on the spot, and his expression turned extremely embarrassed. But he quickly stabilized himself as he gritted his teeth and hissed, "You weaved your lie as though it was real. Of course there's no such thing. This is also something that you made up. How could third junior sister possibly do such a thing? Master, don't tell me you don't believe in me and third junior sister's character." Murongde was originally convinced by what Luo Jiyun said, but upon hearing such words, he started to become hesitant again. Murong Fei was after her his most pampered eldest daughter, but now she had been accused of murdering Li Moying's fiancé in public. Sending the gazes from the guests of various major powerhouses, Murongde's face was almost about to fall off. However, he wasn't willing to accept the fact that his own daughter would do such a thing like this. He looked at Murong Fei. "Feia, what exactly is going on? You really didn't do such a thing, right?" Eldest senior brother, Murong Fei opened her mouth, but it wasn't to answer her father's question, but to call out for Li Moying. In reality, the minute Li Moying appeared in front of everyone, Murong Fei's gaze had been fixated on him. Not knowing if it was her misperception or what, Murong Fei felt that Li Moying's appearance this time round seemed to be even more handsome and suave, and even more powerful and charming. As though he had shed his mortal body and changed wholly, as an unexcelled top expert's aura appeared to be even grander and condensed than before. To any woman, this overbearing might which belonged to the strong, when paired to that handsome-looking face, was a fatal attraction. Li Lingchuan turned his head back, and upon seeing her gaze, his face turned green immediately. There was nothing more face-slapping than this. His own fiancé had actually ignored himself by her side as she used that star-studded gaze to stare at another man. Wasn't this obviously putting on a green hat for him? Moreover, it was under the situation when so many people were around. Indeed, the public square started to emit some jeering sounds on and off. Li Lingchuan got even more flabbergasted as his tone was tinged with unpleasantry. "Feia, what's wrong with you? Haven't you heard Master asking you a question?" quickly answer him. You're such a kind-hearted person, so how could you possibly have harmed Bai Ruoli? Murong Fei then regained her senses. Right father, how could you possibly not even believe in me? I absolutely have not pushed Bai. Miss Bai. She had lost her footing and fell down herself, and I happened to be nearby, but I wasn't able to pull her up in time. Speaking of this, I indeed have some responsibility as well because I had not noticed Miss Bai's situation then. But this is really an accident. Such a matter happening isn't something that anyone wanted to see. When Li Lingchuan heard that what she said wasn't quite bad, as it was the same saying as what they had discussed. The expression on his face then smoothened a little. Luckily, although this woman was quick to change sides and was a wanton woman, but at least she still knew what was important. In actual fact, how could he possibly have known that Murong Fei's soul had flown towards Li Moying once again? The reason why she had remembered to say this was not to help Li Lingchuan whitewash himself, but was so that she could use this opportunity to get close to Li Moying once again, hence she put on this act. After Murong De obtained the answer that he wanted to hear, he muttered softly, Jiyun, this matter is probably a mistake. You can also listen on. To say that Feiya they all had harmed someone, but there's no evidence. And as this is a huge matter, we shouldn't come to a conclusion so easily. If there's really a mistake somewhere, it's not good if we wrongly accused anyone, right? Murong De fiddled with his beard and hesitated for a moment. You have just come back from the cloudy Chalene mystic region and have all been tired out. I see quite a number of you still have injuries on you, so it's better to hurry back and rest. Your master, I will investigate the truth in this matter to return you justice. Although Murong De instinctively felt that there wasn't something quite right with this matter, but he still chose to stand by his biological daughter's side. His beloved wife had passed on early, leaving just these two daughters for him. Murong Ni had already become the sect's traitor and despised by everyone, so surely he could not bear to see Murong Ni becoming a murderer, right? Luo Jiyun was so infuriated that he was shaking with anger. He had not expected that even his master, who he had always respected, had actually abused the fact to flip things around. This is totally not a misunderstanding. The truth is exactly as what I've said. What other evidence do you need? Murong De frowned as he felt that this disciple of his was really, to put it in a nice way, he was called frank and honest. If it was put in a bad way, it was called dense. With so many outsider sects guests around, exposing Celestial Light sect's internal scandal, even if what he said was the truth, what use was it to him? The entire Celestial Light sect would have its reputation completely ruined because of this. Jiyun, you're really tired, it's better for you to go take a rest. Luo Jiyun was agitated and wanted to continue speaking when he heard a sweet voice coming from his back. Junior brother Luo, stop arguing with sect master Murong, perhaps. You might have really seen it wrongly. Huang Yueli had been standing right beside Li Moying listening to their argument silently, as though she was one of the audience watching the show. But now, she suddenly opened her mouth. When Luo Jiyun heard that, he turned out abruptly as he looked at her in shock. Lil sister-in-law, he wanted to say, have you taken the wrong medicine? How could you tell a blatant lie about this kind of thing? But his gaze shifted towards Li Moying's icy cold face and he immediately shut his mouth. Huang Yueli casted a glance at him and suddenly stretched out her arm to hug Li Moying's arm and leaned against her own fiancé, giving off a sweet smile. I feel that eldest Miss Murong couldn't have possibly pushed me on purpose. After all, she has no reason to do so. In the past, we thought that it was because she liked my Moying, hence she went against me, but today, I discovered that it was really all a misunderstanding. The one who eldest Miss Murong really liked is Master Li. Speaking of that, I haven't congratulated Master Li and Miss Murong. Today the two of you are getting engaged and the lovers finally got married. It's really a heavenly joyous occasion. Moying, we've come empty-handed and haven't prepared any gift. Is it not nice of us to do this? Huang Yueli's eyes were really large as she put on an obedient look while clinging next to Li Moying's side. Li Moying saw her innocent look and knew that she was up to no good. This young lass, the more she looked obedient, the more ill intentions she had. He just switched a train of thoughts and knew exactly what Huang Yueli was planning as his eyes flashed a smile filled with adoration as he stretched his hand out to bring her into his embrace, lowering his head as he gave a light peck on her fair forehead. No matter, Things were unexpected, so it's understandable that we didn't bring along any gifts. At most when we get married later on, we'll just not accept their red packet." Murong Fei saw their intimate gestures and her face instantly turned green with anger. You can also listen on. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.